Chapter 502. Smith shut his mouth and focused on the road ahead. He let the car turn onto another road in the quiet atmosphere. It took many twists and turns, going back and forth, and circling around Kingstown University again and again. After a long while, Lu Qing exited the video interface and opened the app. He replied to Yen Zhika's complaint about the professor, unhurried as usual. "What's your answer?" Smith asked expectantly and nervously. His voice was a little hoarse. Lu Qing glanced at him casually and didn't answer. He sent a message to Yen Zhika first. "Do you want me to be the bane of evil? What's the situation?" Yen Zhika replied with an emoji of a confused and adorable mythical beast. "An agent from the Department of Homeland Security is looking for me for a favor. Coincidentally, it's in line with my plans. The situation is too complicated, so I'll tell you about it after dinner. It's not dangerous. The worst-case scenario is that you have to find me a good lawyer, so that it won't affect my future visa." Lu Qing replied with a smile. Empress Dowager knows a few good lawyers, and has the backing of an agent from the Homeland Security Bureau. You'll be fine as long as you don't cause any big trouble. Yen Zhika saw how confident Lu Qing was, as if he was going to the next street to buy groceries. She wasn't worried, but more curious and puzzled. Humph. Qing really can't stop worrying no matter where he goes. "What's your answer?" Seeing that Lu Qing had stopped chatting, Smith repeated his question. His sunlit face was tense, afraid to reveal the turbulent emotions in his heart. "No problem." Lu Qing locked his phone with a click and answered calmly. With the strength that Johnny Joseph had displayed in the past year, Lu Qing was confident that he could beat him in a one-on-one duel before he made a breakthrough in Ice Mirror. What's more, this was a surprise attack, and his Ice Mirror had reached the level of encountering gods in the void. Self-reflection. "No problem." Smith was shocked and surprised at the same time. He could feel the strong confidence that was hidden deep under the surface. Is he really fine? Although Joseph's strength had been fluctuating, it had always been at the dangerous grade. In the past 6 months, it felt like he had returned to his peak, and was on the same level as the Chinese monster beside him. He definitely wasn't an enemy that could be easily dealt with confidence. Smith was worried and emphasized this point. Seeing that Lu Qing was unmoved, he didn't mention it again. He had waited for 5 years for such an opportunity. He was not willing to miss it because of his misgivings. He only wanted to grasp it firmly. At 4 in the afternoon, Joseph will leave the Msasi martial arts gym and return to his home in the suburbs. At that time, the students guarding his villa will leave, leaving him alone. "I will use my authority to enter the system and cut off the connection between the police station and his alarm system. All the police and security officers patrolling the area will pass by his villa once every 28 to 35 minutes. He has scheduled an afternoon tea at 4:40. This is his habit. It's to replenish his energy from his free training in the afternoon. This is your chance, and this is our chance." Smith spoke one by one as he considered all the possibilities. To him, this matter had been on his mind day and night for 5 years. Lu Qing listened quietly. His confidence in this matter had increased by another 10%. When he didn't understand a word, he would take the context into consideration and seek common ground. If it was really an obstacle to communication, he would ask Smith to repeat it, explain it, or provide keywords for translation. As they conversed, Smith drove to another street and brought back a jacket often worn by delivery boys and a few empty lunch boxes. He also gave Lu Qing the baseball cap that his subordinates had left in the car. This was to prevent Johnny Joseph from remembering his face and reporting him in the future. This was exactly what Lu Qing wanted. Johnny Joseph wasn't a loner. He was one of the top 10 mighty ones in the entire Juruga sect. He had teachers, students, and friends. If he left any traces behind, it would be troublesome. At 4:23, Johnny Joseph drove his Hummer back to the entrance of the villa. He happened to see the black giant Olsen driving a similarly exaggerated car. Beep, beep, beep. He pressed the horn to stop the car. "What?" Olsen stepped on the brakes and rubbed his bald head, revealing a mouthful of extremely white teeth. Joseph had a layer of light yellow hair. He stared at Olsen with his blue eyes and said in a cold tone, "Watch your mouth. I don't want to hear you make fun of me again. Olsen's skin was so dark that it was shiny, but his eyes were filled with anger. However, when he looked into Joseph's eyes, he saw that there seemed to be a storm and waves brewing in Joseph's deep blue eyes. He couldn't help but shiver. His emotions faded away, and he raised his arm to show that he already knew about the warning. He muttered, "I'm sorry, Joseph. Seriously, you don't have a sense of humor." He released the brakes, stepped on the accelerator and drove to another villa. Coward, coward. Joseph cursed under his breath, as if he couldn't wait to fight with Olsen on the spot. He was about 40 years old. He was a Caucasian brawny man who was more than 1.9 meters tall. The muscles on his arms and chest were well-defined and exceptionally eye-catching. "You can get ready now." Watching this scene from afar, Smith said with a trembling voice. Lu Qing was both nervous and expectant. At this moment, he took out his black-rimmed glasses and put them on his nose bridge. He lowered the front of his baseball cap and covered half of his face with the shadows. He held a quarter in his right hand and let it flip and jump between his fingers. After parking the car and walking to the door, Joseph saw 4 students coming after hearing the news. They stood in a row and greeted him respectfully. He nodded satisfactorily and said a few words. Then he waved his hand and let the students leave. He closed the door and walked into the treasure room on the first floor. There were many carefully polished gems placed here. Some were bright red, some were clear green, and some were light blue like lake water. There were all kinds of gems, and as their radiance intertwined, they rippled with a sense of peace and tranquility. Other than that, there were also tree carvings, bone carvings, and other works of art on the shelves and tables. They all gave off a sense of spirituality. Haha, they'll never find it. Joseph let out a smug and sinister laugh. He closed his eyes and released his own spirituality, immersing himself in the quiet light. It was as if he could see holy, pure, and beautiful faces. They were illusory and floating, like spirits that walked on water. Just as he sank into a drug-like frenzy, the doorbell suddenly rang. It rang again, and every sound was ear-piercing. Damn it. Why did he come early? Joseph opened his eyes in anger. His blue pupils were clearly bloodshot. He took a deep breath and calmed down. He turned and walked to the door. Since he was skilled and bold, he only glanced at the surveillance camera casually. After confirming that it was the food delivery guy, he reached out and opened the door. He saw the delivery guy with a baseball cap and a slightly lowered head. No. At that moment, Joseph, whose own spirit was powerful, suddenly felt as if he was facing a monster or a demon. At that moment, Lu Qing flicked his finger. The coin in the slit flew up with a clang, creating sparks of gold and red. It distorted its shape and shot towards Joseph's face. In 12 minutes, the patrolling police would pass by this place. Boom. When Joseph extended his fan-like palm to block, the coin that was infused with Emperor Yen force suddenly exploded. The fragments flew forward and split into 2, then into 4, and then into 8. The enemy was caught off guard and was only able to send 1/3 of the fragments flying. At that critical moment, a blue glow appeared on Joseph's body. It significantly reduced the speed of the shards, causing them to only leave a red mark on his skin. Lu Qing had just flicked the coin when he retracted his chi and blood. He quickly swung his left fist, which was covered in frost formed by ice shards, towards the enemy's lower abdomen. The meal box fell. Joseph's other fist rushed forward in a hurry, blocking his opponent's attack with exaggerated bulging muscles. Bam! The blue glow around Joseph instantly shrunk, and seemed to have solidified. It was as if the sea had encountered a cold wave from the north and south poles. Ice spirit force. Lu Cheng's left arm rebounded. His chi and blood gathered and then exploded. He shook his right shoulder and swung his heavy fist sideways, igniting a crimson flame. Boom. Just as Joseph was about to block, he was hit by a shockwave similar to an explosive explosion. The already solidified blue glow shattered and scattered in all directions, vanishing into thin air. His body couldn't take it anymore, and he staggered backwards. Once Emperor Yen was out, the enemy was invincible. This was the fully formed Emperor Yen force. As Joseph retreated, Lu Qing took a step forward and threw a punch of Ice Spirit and Emperor Yen at the same time, leaving no gaps. He always maintained the optimal distance between each step. As if he was measuring accurately. Joseph couldn't retaliate, dodge, or escape. Bam, 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 bam. Lu Qing was like a robot. Following a predetermined sequence, he ruthlessly unleashed his Dan force. Half of it was light, half of it was heavy, and he invited Emperor Yen. After 8 consecutive exchanges, Joseph, who didn't understand what was going on, felt hot and cold at the same time. His strong body began to tremble. If not for his many years of fame, and the fact that he had recovered to his peak by absorbing pure spirits, he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand it. Bam! Lu Qing took another step forward. Using the realm of encountering gods in the void, he activated his qi and blood, stimulating a certain part of his body. His muscles swelled, and his fascias opened up. He seemed to have grown much taller. This was a simulation of the circulation of the fighting formula. The effect wasn't as good as the original, but the advantage was that there was no need to pronounce it. Boom. He swung his fist down and landed on Joseph's forearm. A ball of crimson flames burst out, creating a violent shockwave. His opponent's stance was forcefully broken, and he staggered backwards. Then he took a sliding step and threw a punch forward. Joseph, who had not been able to use his strength, knew that he was in a desperate situation. He roared and awakened something hidden in the bottom of his heart. The scattered blue brilliance on the surface of his body shone again, and it was dyed with a dark red color that was close to black. Then he splashed it at the enemy who was sliding and punching. Lu Qing seemed to have been prepared for this. With a squeeze of his tailbone and a quick twist of his waist, he forcibly changed his direction and circled behind Joseph. The 19th move of the Ice Sect, Frost Devour. Whoosh! The dark red light splashed onto the ground, corroding a large pit. At the same time, Lu Qing visualized, turned his waist and back, and swung his fist at the enemy, who couldn't dodge in time. His fist landed on the enemy's arm, which he hurriedly put up as a shield. Severe warning. With a muffled thud, the brilliance on Joseph's body completely froze and turned crystal clear. His eyes lost focus. Lu Qing didn't hold back and struck again. His fist went up from his waist like a cannon, and landed on his opponent's abdomen, triggering an internal explosion. Boom. Joseph's body jerked and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He finally recovered from his frozen state. But before he could control his body, he was hit by Lu Qing's severe warning again. His vision was completely unfocused, and he turned into an ice sculpture. Lu Qing took half a step forward and slapped Joseph's left temple with his right hand, knocking him out. Throughout the whole process, Joseph, who was ambushed, didn't have a chance. His every move was reflected in Lu Qing's ice mirror. Lu Qing clapped his hands and shook off the ice crystals. He didn't leave any fingerprints. Then he called Smith, who was waiting outside. "It's done," he reported concisely. There was silence on the other side. Only his breathing was getting heavier. "Lu seems to have just entered the door. P.S. It's Monday. I'm looking for a recommendation." Chapter 503. After a moment of silence, Smith replied with a trembling voice, "All right, I'll be right there." After ending the call, Lu Qing scanned his surroundings, but couldn't find any valuable clues. He had no choice but to turn his attention back to the unconscious Joseph. In the previous battle, it seemed like it was easy for him to kill the Grandmaster of Combat without giving him a chance to retaliate. But in reality, to achieve such an effect, he had gone all out and held nothing back. With the ice mirror as the core, he had perfectly integrated his prediction, force, unique skill, footwork, and other skills into one. That was how he had managed to subdue his opponent without any accidents. An inhuman mighty one wasn't as easy to deal with as he made it out to be. Because of that, he didn't hide the characteristics of his martial arts, nor could he. Even if he didn't know how he looked, Joseph would be able to find out who the attacker was after he regained consciousness. That would leave behind a rather troublesome trail. When he first thought about the Connecticut criminal cleanup plan, he was thinking that he could easily disguise the characteristics of his martial arts and mix in the techniques of the Jaruga sect. However, if he were to face a stronger enemy, once he was sure that he was guilty, it wasn't as if he couldn't be ruthless. It wasn't uncommon for people to have their brains damaged during a battle. Anyway, the American government would probably like such results. According to his master, their man-made weapons project, urgently required grandmasters of combat who had been thoroughly brainwashed. But considering that he wasn't familiar with this place, he didn't have any information or clues. Rashly determining who was guilty and who deserved to die wasn't in line with his beliefs. Moreover, it could easily leave behind other influences. So he gave up on the sudden plan. It was as though he was playing a YY game. Who knew he would run into Smith? As agents, they should have more ways to deal with such situations. If it really doesn't work out, I'll do it myself. Step by step. As Lu Cheng's thoughts raced, Smith had already parked the car. He maintained interference with the alarm system, walked into the villa, picked up the dropped lunchbox, and closed the door. His gaze swept past Lu Cheng, whose face was covered by his glasses, and landed on the unconscious Joseph on the ground. His facial muscles suddenly twitched, and veins appeared in his eyes. It was as though he couldn't wait to pounce on him and chew on his enemy's flesh. It's too fast. Sonny's father hasn't arrived yet. Let me do a preliminary search first. Smith was also an agent who had undergone years of training and evolved superpowers. He quickly calmed down. Lu Qing nodded slightly and said in a low voice, "If you can't find any clues, I can help." With his perception abilities after breaking through the ice mirror, he might be able to see more than an experienced person and discover subtle clues. Through his communication with the Gem Fei and other evidence, he was almost certain that Joseph was the murderer. He was the butcher, who was the main source of the Connecticut girl's nightmares. That was why he was so certain. There were many superhumans and psychics in the United States. If there was any other evidence, the case would have been solved long ago. In other words, Joseph's villa was the key to the case. Smith believed that he could find something here, and so did Lu Cheng. Okay, you can deal with the scene first. Smith took out the device and began to search from the first floor. He opened the door of the treasure room and cast most of his eyes on the shiny bone sculpture. However, due to the process of identification, he could not make a direct judgment. He could only knock on it to check and scrape off the debris. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, used pure fire force and ice force to give Joseph a few hits, destroying the remaining symptoms of Emperor Yen force and ice spirit force. He also cleaned up the traces of the battle in the living room, to ensure that he did not miss any clues that belonged to him. After a few minutes, when Smith was feeling a little impatient because he could not find any evidence, the doorbell rang. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes. His hair stood on end as he prepared himself for action. Smith came out of the treasure room and waved his hand. "It's Sonny's father. We have to hurry. The delivery guy will be here in 10 minutes. As he spoke, he walked to the door and took a look at the surveillance camera. He unsealed the door and let in a middle-aged man with gray hair and sagging cheeks. "Cole." Lu Qing was stunned. He muttered to himself, "Isn't this the same Cole who followed Joseph's student Lin Dello to practice the Jiruga technique? In the morning, I was still surprised that he did not become a combat apprentice despite being a professional ninth pin fighter. He seemed to have to awaken his own spirit before he could make the promotion. From the looks of it, he has other plans." As soon as Cole stepped in, his eyes were attracted to Joseph on the floor. His tightly shut mouth made the sound of grinding teeth. The flesh on his sagging cheeks trembled. His gaze was filled with hatred, violence, and madness. It was as though he could melt and penetrate the body of his enemy. "Uncle Cole, hurry up," reminded Smith. Cole panted heavily. He forcibly retracted his gaze and began to scan his surroundings. He did not recognize Lu Cheng. He only nodded gratefully at the superhero, who was wearing a baseball cap and black-framed glasses. He could not see his face clearly. "He's Sonny's father?" Lu Qing asked in a low voice while Cole was looking elsewhere with a sorrowful expression. He believed that with Smith's monitoring of him, he should know that he was in the same class as Cole. "Yes. Uncle Cole wants to become Joseph's student so he can guard this place," answered Smith with a gloomy and pained expression. "Isn't he afraid of being discovered?" asked Lu Cheng, puzzled. For a devil who has killed at least 40 innocent girls, how can he remember their many relatives? Uncle Cole divorced Sonny's mother a long time ago. He only comes to visit her a few times a year, said Smith after a moment of silence. He regrets his choice back then. While the two of them were talking, Cole seemed to have been summoned by something and heard a voice. A layer of mist appeared in his gray eyes. He turned around and walked towards the treasure room. He stared at the crimson gem and muttered to himself, "What a pity." "Sonny, is that you? Sonny, is that you?" He extended his right hand and touched the surface of the gemstone with trembling hands. Suddenly, the gemstone lit up as though it had been illuminated by a strong light. Patches of crimson jumped out from the gemstone and caressed Cole's cheeks. "Sonny! Sonny!" Cole shouted in a low voice. The fog in his eyes condensed into droplets of water that slid down his rough face and grayish-white beard stubble. The surrounding gemstones and sculptures were affected by this as they shimmered with spiritual light, enveloping the treasure room in a sorrowful and gloomy atmosphere. "Sonny!" Smith rushed in with large strides and kept muttering softly. He vaguely felt the warmth that the blonde girl had once given him, as though it was yesterday. He believed that he had found a clue, Stimulated by the spirituality, the unconscious Joseph's eyes moved as he slowly woke up. He heard Sonny again and again, and felt the signs of the spiritual object's radiance going out of control. "I've been discovered," he said wistfully. Why? Smith turned around abruptly and rushed to Joseph's side. He shouted, "Why did you kill Sonny?" "Sonny?" Joseph clearly didn't remember who Sonny was. Perhaps he never knew the names of those innocent girls. After a short pause, he smiled without any hint of remorse. "Because they are pure and holy spirits." Cole held the bright red gem in his hand, and his pupils reflected a crimson color. He shouted sorrowfully, "Where's her body?" Joseph revealed an intoxicated expression. It was so perverse that it made one's hair stand on end. "Part of it became a spiritual object. The rest merged with me." "Wretch!" Lu Cheng, who understood the meaning behind his words, almost spat out the coffee he had just drunk. "Demon, you're a demon." Cole panted and cursed as he approached Joseph step by step. Poor Sonny. She didn't do anything. Because of this, she was innocently murdered. She didn't even know the murderer's reason. She must have been confused, puzzled, and confused at that time. Joseph ignored Cole and Smith's reactions. He struggled to look at the delivery boy who had defeated him. However, all he could see was his pants, clothes, black-rimmed glasses, and baseball cap. He was 1.76 to 1.78 meters tall. His body was covered by clothes, and his skin was covered with ice crystals. He couldn't tell which race he was from, but his spirit was very, very strong. "Are you the new superhero?" Joseph asked in a hoarse voice as he rolled his blue eyes. He wanted to know why Lu Qing interfered, and why he was attacked. "No," Lu Qing answered with simple words. "Well, I can't reveal that I was here to eliminate the source of the threat to Ku. That would alert Smith and the rest of them to my weakness. Joseph killed women for the pure and holy spirit. He didn't limit his targets to younger girls. He might have targeted Ku, who had the talent for meditation." "Then you're doing this for justice? The bane of criminals?" Joseph sneered. "Not really," Lu Qing answered frankly. Joseph was stunned for a moment. He blurted out, "Then why are you here? Why are you targeting me?" Lu Qing thought for a moment. He lowered the brim of his baseball cap and said, "I have nothing better to do. Theoretically speaking, I do have too much free time. That's why I have the time to indulge in whimsical thoughts. Coincidentally, I've always been good at taking action. Nothing better to do." Joseph was stunned. He didn't expect this at all. Just because I have too much free time, I'm being targeted? Fuck. Shit. What kind of stupid reason is this? The anger in his heart turned into flames. He couldn't wait to get up and bite Lu Cheng. In that instant, he felt the confusion, doubt, and pain that Sonny and the rest felt when they were innocently killed. In his sorrow, Smith thought that Lu Cheng was merely retaliating verbally against Joseph. Amused, he walked over and took out a metal box the size of a palm. From the box, he took out a syringe, a needle, and a liquid that glowed with a faint golden light. After assembling the syringe, Smith injected the liquid into Joseph's body. He turned to Lu Cheng and smiled. "Muscle-slowing agent. It will make him feel weak for an hour. Also, it has serious side effects that will damage his recent memories. If he was in good condition, he might be able to pull through. But now may God bless him. Not bad." Lu Qing nodded in satisfaction. Smith stood up, glanced at his watch, and said to Lu Cheng, I'll send you off first. Uncle Cole, watch the scene. Okay. Cole replied in a deep voice, his eyes fixed on Joseph. After Smith and Lucheng left the villa, got into the car and drove away, Cole let out a maniacal laugh and slowly approached Joseph. What are you going to do? Joseph, who had been waiting calmly for a lawyer, finally panicked. In the car, Lucheng glanced at Smith and sighed. You should be able to guess what happened in the villa. Uncle Cole is determined to pay the price. Smith didn't answer directly. Lucheng didn't say anything else and closed his eyes. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 504. Near Connecticut University, Smith stopped the car by the roadside and turned to Lucheng. I have to go back as soon as possible to settle the remaining matters. Don't worry, there won't be any surveillance footage left behind. Okay. Lucheng nodded, unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car. He had taken 2 steps when he heard Harding call out, Hey, Lu. What? Lucheng looked back and saw that Smith had already rolled down the car window, leaned over and stuck his head out. His eyes were pained but sincere. His voice was low and slow as he said, Thank you. Lucheng smiled and shook his head. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked towards the school gate that he was used to going in and out of. With the appearance of the butcher and his revenge, Smith could finally vent the pain and suffering that had accumulated over the past 5 years. Lucheng had already taken off his black-rimmed glasses and returned to his usual appearance. He went to the supermarket and bought a bottle of water. He was so bored that he first chilled it and then heated it again until Yenjika's lessons were over and she was about to leave school. Throughout this process, he wasn't as bored as he appeared to be. He had been seriously summarizing his experience in the battle with Joseph. Although he had obtained an overwhelming advantage in this battle, chaining his opponent to the point of death, and was unable to unleash the various miraculous and tyrannical aspects of the Jaruga sect, he could look at it from a different perspective. For example, if he were to be ambushed and fall into a passive state, how would he turn the situation around and break out of his predicament? For example, if Joseph were to change his response to a certain choice, would it have been better for him? If that was the case, how should he continue to exert sufficient pressure? A lost battle required contemplation, but so did a victorious battle. And this was the first battle after Lucheng's breakthrough with the ice mirror. With it as the core of the battle, there was still much to be summarized. Holding a bottle of mineral water with ice cubes floating in his hand, Lucheng stood at the school gate of Connecticut University, waiting for Ku and Aunt Du to come out. At this moment, Huang Shiwen, with her chubby cheeks and gorgeous face, was chatting and laughing with a few girls she was close with as they rushed towards the school gate. They were going to have a wild party tonight. As her gaze wandered, Huang Shiwen suddenly saw a familiar figure and couldn't help but tremble. He was the man of the hour in Songqing University. The news of him and Lin Kei winning the national championship was still a hot topic in the school forum. More importantly, he was Yenjika's boyfriend. Lucheng? Why is he here? Huang Shiwen looked at the well-defined, masculine face with a hint of gentleness. Her heart felt as if it had sunk into an ice cave, enduring the cold of dozens of degrees below zero. He hasn't broken up with Yenjika? Did Yenjika badmouth me in front of him? Will he hit me? Is it too late to call the police now? I heard that people who practice martial arts are impulsive. Huang Shiwen's thoughts surged, and all of them deviated in a bad direction. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. With Lucheng's rumored strength, even if the police arrived, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Ask Wolf for help? He was the apprentice of the senior martial artist Joseph's student. Even though he definitely wouldn't be able to defeat Lucheng, he could use Mr. Joseph's name to scare him off. Aya, what am I thinking? I haven't done anything bad to Yenjika, and I've been inviting her to parties out of kindness to broaden her social circle. I have a clear conscience. Moreover, she was indeed very introverted, very antisocial, and very unsociable at Kingstown University. She also dressed like an old aunt. I wasn't wrong. I'm not afraid of Lucheng. Lucheng gazed at the entrance, his gaze sweeping past many figures as he searched for his little fairy. Suddenly he saw an Asian girl. Judging from her appearance, she should be Chinese. Huang Shiwen's calves suddenly trembled under his gaze. Beads of cold sweat formed on her forehead, and the back of her gauze skirt showed signs of being soaked. Luala, what's wrong? A girl beside her shouted. The American name Huang Shiwen gave herself. Huang Shiwen couldn't form a sound. She anxiously tugged at her classmate, indicating that she wanted to take a detour to go home. There are quite a lot of fellow countrymen here. Lu Qing thought casually. His eyes suddenly lit up, reflecting Yenjika's figure. Through her tied-up hair and big black-framed glasses, he saw her inner beauty. He smiled and walked up to her. He heard someone shouting Luala. It seemed that the Chinese girl just now had fainted. There are quite a lot of kind-hearted people. I won't make a red scarf. Lu Qing held Yenjika's left hand and took over her bag and sundries. He felt that his heart had really settled down and become unusually steady. It was as though he had returned to a warm and peaceful home. The residual emotions from his surprise attack on the inhuman had completely dissipated. What's going on there? Yenjika looked curiously at the side, which was surrounded by layers upon layers of people. I think a girl fainted. The weather changes drastically. It's easy to catch a cold if you're not careful. Lu Qing said whatever came to mind. He had already calmed down and his expression was relaxed. Yenjika vaguely saw that the surrounded girl had already woken up and was being carried away by kind-hearted people. She didn't care much and returned home with Lu Qing. While waiting for Aunt Du to prepare dinner, she dragged the worrisome Cheng upstairs and sat on the edge of the bed. She coughed lightly, pursed her lips and deliberately kept a straight face. Tell me, what bad things did you do in the afternoons? Her eyes were bright and full of curiosity. Cough, I went to catch a psychopathic murderer. Lu Qing summarized the main point. Psychopathic murderer? Yenjika's clear eyes widened. They were filled with confusion and doubt. All the guesses she made in the afternoon had come to nothing. You should have heard of Butcher, right? Lu Qing asked. He was a notorious criminal in Kingstown. Yes, I've heard of him. Empress Dowager even summarized a few key areas where Butcher committed his crimes. She told me not to go there for no reason. It's better to be safe than sorry. You caught him. Do you know who he is? Yenjika couldn't keep a straight face anymore. She was like a little girl who wanted to hear a story. Lu Qing walked to the girl's side and sat down. He nodded and said, It's Joseph, a senior martial artist from the Jaruga sect. Didn't I sign up for the advanced course? When I was communicating with the gem to awaken my own spirit, I sensed the hidden bloodthirst of the grinder, which is Joseph. Originally, I didn't have any other evidence. If I went to him directly, I would easily become a criminal and be deported. That's why I didn't want to do it at first. Later, the head of the Secret Service, Smith, who was in charge of monitoring me, contacted me. His girlfriend, Sunny, was a victim of Butcher. Without waiting for Lu Qing to finish, Yenjika was stunned. She changed her position and blurted out. There's a Secret Service monitoring you? Is there really a surveillance system? That's right. We'll also monitor when experts from other countries enter the country. Which do you want me to talk about first? Secret Service or Butcher? Lu Qing was amused. Both. Yenjika had already let down her hair and removed her glasses. Her eyes were bright and clear. After answering, she suddenly let out an ayah and blurted out in relief. Thank goodness we drew the curtains. Before she could finish, the girl shut her mouth. Her pretty face was as red as a peach, making Lu Cheng's heart skip a beat. He cleared his mind and answered firmly. I've seen their surveillance footage. It only covers my activities outside. If Smith dares to peep, I'll let him know what it means to lose his memory from a beating. Seeing that Yenjika didn't want to talk about this topic, Lu Qing changed the topic and described the general situation. Although Joseph is similar to an inhuman, I've improved recently. Moreover, it was a surprise attack, so subduing him was a sure thing. What I'm most worried about is actually the problem of cleaning up. I'm afraid that exposing my identity will bring you trouble. This is also why I didn't want to do it at first. However, with Smith around, it won't be a problem. As for Uncle Cole, he will definitely turn himself in. However, he doesn't know who I am and doesn't know me. Even if the Jaruga sect finds a corresponding superpower user, they won't be able to trace it back to me. Listening to Lu Cheng's tireless narration, she thought of the girls who were harmed by the demon Butcher. the pain that Cole and Smith had to endure, and the determination of that father who was willing to pay the price. Yenjika had mixed feelings. Her eyes reddened, filled with resentment and sympathy. Those poor innocent girls. That perverted criminal with no remorse. She suddenly reached out and patted Lu Cheng's shoulder. Biting her lip, she nodded seriously. Cheng, you've done a great job. One of the main goals of my dream of practicing martial arts is to be a chivalrous and righteous swordsman. You fulfilled all my expectations in this regard. As she spoke, her voice gradually softened. However, she couldn't help but remind him at the end. If the bad guy is stronger than you, just leave him alone for now. I'm not stupid. Lu Cheng laughed. Then he corrected the girl's perception of him. Actually, I didn't look for Joseph because I hate evil and want to be a chivalrous person. This is only a small part of the reason. Then what is it? Yenjika blinked blankly. She couldn't think of a second reason. Lu Cheng cleared his throat and said smugly, Joseph's target is Joseph. Joseph's target is a girl with a pure and holy spirit. Although the possibility isn't high, I'm still afraid that he'll set his sights on you one day. Therefore, we have to take precautions and eliminate this hidden danger. He described the Connecticut criminal cleanup plan that he came up with blindly. Yenjika was stunned at first. Then she gradually calmed down. She pursed her lips and stared at Lu Cheng with rippling eyes. When Lu Cheng finished, she moved her arms and said in amusement, You're really, she couldn't come up with a reason. She pretended to be wronged and looked at Lu Cheng with bright eyes. She bit her lower lip and said, I've been impure for a long time. I've been tainted by you. Haha, it's normal for married girls to be tainted. Lu Cheng laughed softly. Yenjika narrowed her eyes and picked up her phone. She leaned into her husband's arms and said, Let me check if there are any reports. 10 seconds later, she saw the news. She acted as a human translator and said, The butcher, that has plagued Connecticut for a decade has finally shown himself. A victim's father is a new superhero, Deliverer-man. 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 Haha. Yenjika burst out laughing and stopped reading. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He was very dissatisfied with his superhero nickname. Yes, very dissatisfied. It's not cool at all. P.S. There are too many people on the list this week. I can't even get into the top 15. Chapter 505. After laughing for a while, Yenjika raised her head and looked at the dissatisfied Lu Cheng. She deliberately frowned and said, I remember you said you would be my personal delivery boy. Didn't you say you would only deliver food to me? You liar. As she spoke, the corners of her mouth curled up again. Unable to keep a straight face, Lu Cheng reached out and held the girl's waist. He cleared his throat and laughed. I didn't deliver takeout to Joseph. Don't tell me I should tell him. Sir, your severe warning has arrived. Your Emperor Yen force has arrived, and the DF-21 you ordered has been launched? Cheng, I realize you're getting better at talking. Tell me, did you learn bad things from Talker? Yenjika laughed and leaned comfortably in Lu Cheng's arms. She picked up her phone and read the rest of the news. When the police arrived, the living room of the villa was covered in blood. Joseph's body. She couldn't continue reading. She felt her appetite disappear instantly. Lu Cheng lowered his head and saw the few lines of words with his strong eyesight. Cole vented his pain and hatred to his heart's content. He drained Joseph's blood and dismembered his body. He even tried to chop it up and burn it, destroying everything beyond recognition. Lu Cheng sighed and clicked his tongue as he watched. At the same time, he was even more certain of the subsequent developments. If that was the case, the coroner probably wouldn't be able to discover that Joseph had been frozen. Pure explosions and flames were mostly controlled by experts. Cole also completely destroyed the villa's surveillance system. The experts couldn't recover the damage. Yenjika skipped the first part of the news and translated the following description. Cole truthfully confessed his crimes, but didn't mention the Deliverer Man. Even if the relevant personnel used superpowers to induce him, they couldn't find anything. We can make an outline of the Deliverer Man. He's good at computers and is a very good hacker. He can hack into the police system and cut off the connection between the alarm system and the police station. He's very good at fighting and is stronger than the veteran martial artist Joseph. He has the superpower to create explosions. He likes to dress up as a delivery boy. After reading, Yinjika pursed her lips and looked at Lu Cheng. She nodded seriously and said, based on what they listed, even your wife wouldn't recognize you. They're thinking too much. Lu Cheng shook his head, amused. That's for the best. As a person with a big heart, he had already forgotten that unimpressive nickname. At this time, Du Yin finished preparing dinner and urged them to go downstairs. Affected by the news, Yinjika only ate a little, while Lu Cheng ate a lot to make up for his previous consumption. After dinner, the girl turned on her computer and busied herself with reports. Lu Cheng took the menu, lit the table lamp, and sat beside her. Sometimes he would study cooking, sometimes he would look up news, sometimes he would watch videos of the Jaruga sect, and sometimes he would turn his head to admire the girl's soft and beautiful side profile. Your report looks quite complicated. After a few glances, he sighed. Fortunately, there's no rush. I'll hand it in next week. Right now, I'm just doing a simple preliminary research to facilitate tomorrow's group discussion. Yinjika tucked her hair behind her ear, picked up the cup, and took a sip. She unlocked the screen of her phone and looked at the discussions in several groups. She blurted out, "The girl who fainted just now is Huang Xiwen." Huang Xiwen? How come she fainted? Lu Cheng had heard of this name before. He knew that she was a classmate of his little fairy and was in the same training program. She was good at socializing and often invited his wife to parties, which annoyed her since she didn't like such occasions. She turned from tactful evasions to outright rejections. Yinjika looked at her husband suspiciously. Seeing that he was sincere and didn't seem to be faking it, she shook her head and answered, "I don't know. Maybe it's because she has to play and study at the same time. She often stays up late and her health is deteriorating." Huang Xiwen fainted the moment Cheng showed up. Could it be that he secretly used a secret technique to help me vent my anger? No, I didn't say anything bad about Huang Xiwen to him. At most, I just complained that he was too warm and friendly. I couldn't stand it. Maybe Huang Xiwen had a guilty conscience and fainted after seeing Cheng? While thinking, Yinjika made a guess and felt inexplicably good. This is good. I didn't cause any trouble, and I feel like I've vented my anger. Because there weren't many tasks, she was quite relaxed. From time to time, she would chat with Lu Cheng and chat about other topics. When Lu Cheng saw interesting news or videos, he would also share them with her for fun. This kind of learning scene was very warm and comfortable. The only problem was that the efficiency was too low. Yinjika didn't finish collecting the simple information until it was close to 9 o'clock. "It's all your fault." She looked at the time and kicked Lu Cheng lightly with her slipper-clad foot. "You made me lose focus. Is this called fatale?" Lu Cheng laughed and made fun of himself. After flirting for a while, Yinjika suddenly heard her stomach growling. She looked up and said in an aggrieved tone, "Cheng, I'm hungry. As the exclusive delivery boy, it's time for you to show off. I didn't eat much for dinner because of that news. I promised to complete the task." Lu Cheng took out his phone and searched for a nearby 24-hour restaurant. There weren't many restaurants in Connecticut. Only a few were open after 9 o'clock. Seeing that he was searching carefully, Yinjika's dimples appeared. She suggested excitedly, "Do you want me to go with you? I haven't eaten supper since I came here." "Okay, I'll drive. You have a driver's license here?" Lu Cheng blurted out in surprise. "Of course, it's not hard to get a driver's license here. I followed Aunt Du in August and passed the test." "Awesome, right?" Yinjika raised her chin proudly. "I admire you the most." Lu Cheng praised exaggeratedly. While they were in high spirits, the couple took the keys and drove out. They went straight to a 24-hour restaurant that Yinjika had heard about for a long time. It was famous for its local specialty pies. The night was hazy and the wind was blowing. It was quiet all around. The north of Connecticut was not as lively as the big cities. As the car sped up, Lu Cheng had to remind Ke to stay steady and not step on the accelerator. After a while, a figure appeared at the intersection in front of them. He was wearing a black cloak and was dressed strangely. He was waving his arms to stop the car. "What's going on?" With her husband beside her, Yinjika was very brave. She stopped the car after muttering a few words and looked over in confusion. The cloaked man opened his mouth and spat out a string of words with some slang. Lu Cheng was stunned. He only understood that the cloaked man was trying to say that there was danger ahead. When he communicated with Smith, he knew that Lu Cheng was an outsider, so he would slow down and reduce his slang and non-standard grammar. What did he say? Lu Cheng asked in a low voice. He said that the Black Forest area ahead is the slums. The security there is very bad. Robberies are common. Try not to go there during the day. It's more dangerous at night. He suggested that we take a detour. Yenjika translated dutifully and expressed her opinion. Although the surveillance network in America is very mature, due to various reasons, it's only limited to certain streets. For example, in the lower levels of the city, most of the devices are broken, and most of them are in disrepair. After pausing for a second, she glanced at Lu Cheng and whispered, I have the superhero, the deliverer man, to protect me. I'm not afraid of bad security. After that, the couple looked at each other and smiled. They waved at the cloaked man outside. Thank you. Then, Yenjika turned on the turn signal and drove to another road. I can't let their good intentions go to waste. The cloaked man nodded in satisfaction as he watched them drive away. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Oh yeah. Why is he waiting there to remind people? Lu Cheng muttered after a few seconds. Yenjika said with a smile. He said that he was a superhero. Although he was not strong and was not recognized by everyone, he always wanted to do something good within his power. Seeing that many people unknowingly entered the Black Forest area at night and suffered losses and even injuries, he stopped cars here every day to remind them. Lu Cheng was touched by her words. He sighed with peace of mind. I think this superhero culture in the United States is quite interesting. Every country has its own unique characteristics. Yeah. Yenjika nodded in agreement. Then she frowned in confusion. But he's wearing a black cloak to stop cars. Other than people like us, who would dare to stop at night. No wonder he said it wasn't effective. That makes sense. Lu Cheng was stunned. Yenjika left in high spirits and returned home when it was 9:40 p.m. After a hearty meal, Yenjika returned home. Shower and sleep. The girl rested for a while, grabbed her pajamas and change of clothes, and walked to the door. Before she left, she looked back at Lu Cheng warily. Seeing that he didn't intend to follow her, she walked into the bathroom. Seriously, am I that perverted? Lu Cheng laughed and shook his head. After a while, the sound of running water stopped. Yenjika came back with a towel wrapped around her head. Her nightdress tonight was slightly different from usual. It was a spaghetti strap style, revealing her delicate collarbones, beautiful shoulders, and fair skin. Lu Cheng was stunned when he saw it. I always wear this. I was too embarrassed to wear it in front of you before. Humph, you said that I'm a married girl. What's there to be afraid of? Yenjika forced herself to explain. Her cheeks were flushed because she had just taken a bath. It looks good. Lu Cheng didn't answer her question. He walked over and volunteered. I'll help you dry your hair. Okay. Yenjika sat down, took off the wet towel, and let Lu Cheng dry her hair. Smelling the fragrance and lowering his head, he saw the breathtaking beauty. Droplets of water slid down her slender white neck and stopped at her delicate collarbone. Lu Cheng couldn't hold himself back no matter how hard he tried. When her hair was only half dry, he kissed her. The girl moaned and softened in his arms. The room was full of romantic scenes. Going to bed on time became an extravagant hope. After a while, Lu Cheng lay down with satisfaction and hugged Yenjika's trembling body. Applying what I've learned is pretty good, he thought with a smile. Yenjika paused for a few seconds, gritted her teeth, and wrote 3 words on Lu Cheng's chest. Big pervert. With Lu Cheng's control of his body, he could easily recognize it. He read it out with a smile. Yenjika rolled her eyes at him and started writing again. Big hooligan. Lu Cheng read it out proudly. Yenjika pursed her lips and moved her fingers again to write. Big idiot. Big idiot. Big hero, huh? Lu Cheng read them one by one, and turned his head to look at the girl. He found that Yenjika had already turned her head and looked to the side. In a dark corner of the street, Smith, who was on night shift, received a call from his superior. Any unusual movements from the target? Did he leave the surveillance? Asked the other side in a deep voice. Joseph was defeated by a new superhero. Every dangerous person in Connecticut was a suspect and had to be questioned. Smith answered without blushing or panting. No, he's very obedient. Very good. The superior didn't say anything else because he didn't think that Lou was suspicious. According to the available information, this dangerous person was no different from Joseph. The next morning, Lu Qing continued his training. After everything was done, he sent the girl to school and jogged to the Saucy martial arts gym. He planned to participate in the class as if nothing had happened. $5,000 can't be wasted. I'll go to the Dragon Punch dojo in the afternoon to see the legendary Zhu Zhu something. Chapter 506. On a Wednesday morning, the wind in Connecticut was mild and pleasant. Lu Qing jogged through the streets, occasionally looking up at the web-like surveillance cameras. He knew that Smith and the other agents were monitoring him. However, he could detect the devices and whether the cameras were aimed at him, but he couldn't determine whether they were aimed at him or not. It was even more impossible for him to detect where Smith and the rest were hiding. This was the difference between martial arts and modern technology. Nothing in this world is omnipotent. Too bad I wanted to knock on their car window and say hello to give them a scare. Lu Qing couldn't help but think mischievously. On the next street, Smith, who had changed his car, was drinking coffee and munching on a burger. Beside him, his subordinate was focused on the surveillance screen. After watching for a while, a young man with thin, blonde hair smiled casually. Boss, the target looked at the famous criminals and cases in Connecticut yesterday afternoon. The butcher was taken down in the afternoon. If you hadn't been keeping an eye on him, I would have suspected that he was the deliverer man. He went to challenge Joseph and let Cole take advantage of him. He had wanted to imitate Smith's use of cut and spar, but he couldn't remember the weird pronunciation. Smith calmly finished the rest of his coffee and replied with a smile. From the data of the target in the past month, he might be able to defeat Joseph, but he won't be able to subdue him. He won't even be able to cause significant damage to him. I think so too. The young man stroked his thin hair and muttered casually, I heard that there's a powerful hair tonic in China. Smith took the opportunity to change the topic. He didn't look guilty at all. He had hacked into a company last night and optimized the search results. When searching for information about the victim, Sunny, her boyfriend was placed at the very end of the search results. The corresponding photo was also altered and deleted. It had been 5 years, and most people's memories of this had faded. It was difficult for them to remember such an insignificant figure in the case. As long as the relationship between Smith and Sunny wasn't discovered, there wouldn't be any problems. The things I've worked hard to learn over the past 5 years have finally come in handy. Smith crumpled the food packaging into a ball, rolled down the car window, and threw it from afar, accurately sending it into the trash can. The entire process was escorted by a thread. The moment Lu Qing stepped into the Saucy martial arts gym, he could feel a stifling atmosphere. The instructors and students walking in and out of the gym either kept a straight face, remained silent, or whispered in each other's ears. After a few steps, just as he was about to turn the corner, he suddenly saw Olsen, the 2-meter-tall giant that he had met the day before. Olsen was approaching him. His skin was so dark that it was shiny. His scalp was smooth without any hair. His expression was solemn and dignified. Hey little boy, I heard that your fighting skills are pretty good. Olsen suddenly opened his mouth, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. His smile was not forced at all. Before Lu Qing could answer, another coach passed by. Olsen instantly shut his mouth and put on a solemn and sorrowful expression. That's the legendary face-changing special skill. Looks like I'm not on good terms with Joseph. Lu Qing shook his head in amusement as he watched Olsen brush past him. He picked up his phone and shared the news with Ko. Immediately after, he turned into the exclusive training ground and saw the red-eyed girl, Hathaway, and the other students. There was no doubt that Cole had not come. After the few of them greeted each other, a Caucasian student rushed over. He asked in shock and doubt, "What happened? Why is there a demonstration outside and blocking the main entrance?" "Jack, didn't you watch the news? Hathaway blurted out in shock. So did I miss something? Jack spread his hands blankly. I was at a party last night and partied till midnight. I came here after waking up. Mr. Joseph, no, Johnny Joseph has been proven to be the butcher. He died because of Cole's revenge. Another male student explained quickly. Lu Cheng almost didn't understand. Luckily, he could guess what the other person was trying to say. That was why he could barely make sense of it. Jack's mouth was wide open. After a while, he scratched his head and said, Are you kidding me? How could Mr. Joseph be the butcher? Even if he was Cole, 10 Coles wouldn't be able to kill him. That's because there's a new superhero, the Deliverer Man, helping him. Hathaway answered with fear and respect. Who would have thought that the usually dignified and powerful martial artist Joseph was actually the devil hiding around us? Luckily, we didn't have much contact with him. Luckily, the Deliverer Man upheld justice and exposed the butcher's mask. Really? Jack took out his phone and browsed the news. After a few minutes, he exclaimed and burst out with a series of words. Lu Cheng was stunned. Oh my God. Is this real? So cool. After expressing his emotions intensely, Jack pointed outside and said, So that's a protest against Joseph? No, they're calling for a boycott of the Jaruga sect. It's organized by the mission. They say that all things have spirit is the path of the devil, and will make people degenerate like Joseph. Hathaway said worriedly. She was worried that the Msasi martial arts arena would be affected. We're not the weird guys from the Kagri sect. Our focus is on fighting. The Jaruga sect is covered in dirty water. They can't even take care of themselves. I'm relieved. Lu Cheng smiled as he listened. The conflict between the mission sect and the nature sect runs deep. Hee. Will the Jaruga sect suspect that the Deliverer Man is the mission's doing? If that's the case, the Jaruga sect and the Msasi martial arts arena will have to cut ties with Joseph. At least on the surface, no one will investigate this matter. The few students chatted worriedly for a while. A female coach with short blonde hair came over and said in a deep voice, Lin Luodong will cooperate with the investigation. I hope he's not involved in any of the butcher's past cases. I'll be in charge of your lessons for the next few days. You can call me Madam Annie. She's calling him the butcher directly? That's a quick cut. Lu Cheng sighed to himself. He began practicing his fighting techniques with Annie. During sparring, he controlled his body with the ice mirror and restrained his instinctive moves. He purely used boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. This gave him a different kind of experience. He looked back at his instinctive reactions during combat and improved himself from the details. Although she had some concerns, Annie had already awakened her own spirit. Her corresponding spiritual cultivation wasn't weak, so she maintained a calm state throughout. She earnestly completed the awakening teaching and other content, allowing Lu Cheng to gain some insights. When the lesson ended, Lu Cheng took a shower and changed his clothes. He carried the bag and left the Msasi martial arts arena without looking back. He had lunch with Yenjuka and chatted about the butcher's case in school. After Yenjuka's lesson, he bought a bottle of water and walked leisurely to the Dragon Punch Dojo of China. It was a short distance away, and only took him 3 to 5 minutes. After leaving the Msasi martial arts arena, Jack invited Ossel and the other students he was close to his rented apartment for a meal. He specially ordered pizza, chicken wings, cola, and other food. When they gathered together, the topic of conversation was always about the butcher and the Deliverer Man. The more they talked, the more excited they got. They made many guesses and finished criticizing each other. At this moment, the doorbell rang and the sound echoed throughout the living room. Who is it? Ossel asked instinctively. Jack stood up and walked to the door. He didn't care and smiled. The takeout is here. Just as he said the word takeout, it was as though a magical spell had been cast on him. He froze on the spot and the discussions in the room were instantly silenced. Don't tell me it's really the Deliverer Man? Jack swallowed his saliva and forced a smile. As he spoke, he carefully opened the door and made many confirmations. After a long mental journey, he finally got the pizza, chicken wings, and other food. Just an ordinary delivery guy. Jack turned around and shrugged. Everyone was relieved at first, then disappointed. Similar scenes were happening in many places in Connecticut. Especially the children, they were filled with fantasies. After Lu Qing arrived at the Dragon Punch Dojo of China, he waited at the front desk and saw the skinny young man, Li Zuanping. "Is Dojo Master Zhu here?" he asked excitedly. Li Zuanping was all smiles. "He's here. He's doing a demonstration. If you were an hour later, he would have left." That's good, that's good." Lu Qing nodded with a smile. He followed Li Zuanping into the training grounds and saw layers and layers of people in front of him. There were white, black, yellow and brown people. "Watch carefully. If you sign up, there will be many more opportunities like this." Li Zuanping extended his hand from behind and tried to pat Lu Qing on the shoulder. However, Lu Qing happened to take a step diagonally, causing his hand to miss. At this moment, Lu Qing pulled his fascia and shook his muscles. Anyone who came into contact with him felt as though they had touched a loach. They slid half a step away without realizing it, allowing him to easily squeeze to the front. In the middle of the training grounds, a Chinese man in his 50s was slowly practicing the routine. His punches and kicks were natural, and seemed to have some foundation. Of course, this foundation was only relative. Lu Qing was stunned. He couldn't believe that this was the legendary Dojo Master Zhu. Very average. Zhu Hong's hair had turned a little white, showing the vicissitudes of life. He was quite good-looking and had the temperament of a Grandmaster. After practicing for a while, he settled his feet and got into a stance. 6 students came out to push him. Before Lu Qing could react, 4 muscular men had already entered the training grounds. There were white and black people. Then 2 excited students joined the team. They lined up in a row as though they were participating in a tug-of-war competition. The latter pushed the former, and in the end, they pushed Zhu Hong's palms. Yeah. The 6 men used all their strength, but still couldn't push the skinny dojo master. This attracted the excited cheers of the other students. Lu Qing, on the other hand, was at a loss with his mouth half open. From the changes in his waist, abdomen, and legs, only the 2 at the end had exerted their strength. Not only did the other 4 not help, but they even slowed him down and offset his strength. Are they F***king liars? The corner of Lu Qing's mouth twitched. Chapter 507. After watching for a while, Lu Qing was both annoyed and amused. He wasn't in the mood to waste any more time. If one were to say that Gym Master Zhu was a complete liar, that wouldn't be the case. He obviously had a decent foundation in martial arts. Back in the day, he was probably only a piece of paper away from the Danqi realm. However, due to his advancing age, he no longer had any hope of making a breakthrough. Although the dragon fist he created couldn't be said to be stunning, it was still a combination of techniques from several countries. It was simple and powerful, and was suitable for beginners. Given his situation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to set up a martial arts dojo in Chinatown near Connecticut University to earn some retirement money. However, if he wanted to make a name for himself, set up a signboard, set up a chain, and earn a huge sum of money, that would be beyond his reach. He could only rely on trickery to make up for his lack of martial arts. He could only rely on exaggerated performances to win over those who shared the same roots or the local masses, who yearned for the mysterious martial arts of China. From a practical point of view, Dojo Master Zhu was a great success, gaining both fame and fortune. On one hand, it was because he was very rational and clear-headed. He never had any conflicts with the local tyrants like the Jiruga sect, nor did he try to snatch their resources. He only took in those who were eliminated. On the other hand, normal challengers couldn't do anything to him. Moreover, there were also strong and sturdy disciples who had received the true teachings to take care of him. On the other hand, whether one could master martial arts or not depended on one's master. Even if a student failed, there would be plenty of reasons to explain it. No one would find fault because of this. Just like the Msasi martial arts gym, there were also a large number of failures. Gently shaking his head, Lu Qing seized the opportunity when the performing student's center of gravity changed when the crowd's cheers reached its climax. He drew in his qi and blood and channeled it into his left leg, causing it to swell and thicken. Lu Qing stomped on the ground and flipped forward. Suddenly, the arena shook and trembled. The tall white man standing in front of Zhu Hong lost his balance and fell, leaning towards Dojo Master Zhu like Mount Tai. Zhu Hong's expression changed. He pushed his feet inward, twisted his knees, swung his hips, and braced his arms to withstand the fall. However, the students behind him were like falling dominoes, stacking on top of each other. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. His center of gravity wobbled, and his body leaned backwards. He staggered a few steps back and sat on the ground. Thump! Thump! The 6 students all fell to the ground in a heap, staring at Zhu Hong with their eyes wide open. The surrounding cheers came to an abrupt end. Everyone looked at each other with a blank expression on their faces. What was going on? This is probably what they call a performance accident. Lu Qing chuckled mischievously. While the crowd was panicking, confused, and focused on the interior of the venue, he picked up his phone, took a picture, and retreated. He squeezed out of the human wall, straightened his clothes, and slowly walked away. After a few seconds, everyone came back to their senses. The 2 Caucasian men in the crowd looked at each other in confusion. George, let's go back to class. The brown-haired young man with a few freckles on his face glanced at Zhu Hong, who hurriedly stood up and said disappointedly. The shaking of the field and the fall of the students were very close together. In hindsight, it was easy to confuse the cause and effect and think that the latter was the cause of the former. The blonde youth with thick arms and a clear devil tattoo sighed and answered, "That's right." Good. Sigh, even in Cathay, there aren't many people as powerful as Peng Helu. Not to mention those who were willing to come to a foreign land. After leaving the Dragon Punch dojo, Lu Qing strolled around the nearby streets aimlessly. He shared the incident with Yan Zheka along with the picture. Poor dojo master Zhu. He must be drawing circles and asking who I offended. He will most likely suspect that it's an old enemy or a competitor from the dojo. He definitely won't think that it's some guy who has nothing better to do, said Yan Zheka. It's hard to say if he'll realize that someone is messing with him. Maybe he'll think that it's a performance accident. Lu Qing put quotation marks around the word performance. Haha, I'm thinking. If that so-and-so knew that someone's true motive was to prevent trouble before it happened, and that it wasn't too far away, what kind of expression would he have? At that moment, the conversation between Lu Qing and Joseph appeared in Yan Zheka's mind. This time, Lu Qing didn't say that he had nothing better to do. Instead, he answered frankly, "For my wife's safety, I have to get rid of the hidden danger in advance." What kind of reaction would Joseph have then? If it were me, I'd definitely ask, "Who's your wife?" and get a weird answer of, "You don't know her." After a series of weird conversations like, "Do I have anything to do with her?" and "I don't think so," he'd feel extreme absurdity and endless anger. It should be the expression of someone who died with their eyes wide open. Sinister smile expression, replied Lu Qing. Yan Zheka forced herself to turn her attention back to the classroom. Rest in peace, Mr. Joseph. It's my fault for coming to Connecticut to study. After this conversation, Lu Qing thought of his Connecticut criminal cleanup plan again. Hence, he leisurely started to filter out possible targets. Nightmare was stronger than Joseph. He hadn't locked onto a suspect of any value. He couldn't even find out who he was, let alone pay him a visit. Furthermore, his crime area was only in the slums, so he could effectively avoid him. The others were either people that Aunt Du could handle, or they wouldn't involve Ko at all. There were only 2 that could pose a threat. One was Mazuski of Polish descent. His skills were only passable. He was the boss of a mafia in Connecticut. He was involved in arms smuggling and large-scale drug trafficking. He worshipped spirit cultivation, and liked to use drugs to control girls, lure the innocent, and hold wild parties. In some situations, strength couldn't prevent everything. Mazuski had been caught a few times, but he had taken precautions in advance. He had his capable subordinates take the blame and go to jail. He was still at large. One of them was called Pavel. He was a member of the church and a Grandmaster of martial arts. Due to the fact that he had violated young children and young girls, his current whereabouts were unknown. There were rumors that he was hiding in the famous Holy Top Church in Connecticut. However, in the absence of evidence, no one dared to search for him, even superheroes. Thinking of this, Lu Qing turned on his phone and sent an email to an inconspicuous mailbox. He asked Smith to provide more information for his reference. If there was a good opportunity and there weren't any consequences, he could try. If not, he wouldn't think about it for now. The butcher incident was at the cusp of a storm. It was better to avoid it for a while. Smith opened the door and got out of the car. He stretched his limbs and walked to the cafe. Just then, he received a notification. He took out his phone and logged into an email that didn't belong to him. He saw Lu Cheng's email. After browsing through it, he covered his face with his hands. Is there an end to this? However, if this happened a few more times, everyone's attention would be diverted from the butcher case to the follow-up. That would completely bury the possibility of me being related to the deliverer man. But I can't do too much or I'll be exposed sooner or later. P.S. I'm stuck at the end of this chapter. I didn't finish it for a long time. Seeing that there wasn't enough time, I wrote down the parts one thought of. That's why the word count is lower. I can't postpone it to tonight. Chapter 508. In China's Dragon Punch Dojo, a gloomy Zhu Hong and a few of his disciples were checking the surveillance cameras, looking for clues. After confirming that there wasn't an earthquake, they were wary of any possible mistakes. Master, this guy is very suspicious. He left after taking a picture. Shouldn't he be enjoying the show? Said a disciple who shared the same roots as Zhu Hong, pointing at Lu Cheng's figure on the screen. Another disciple nodded in agreement. Also, he knows how to avoid the cameras and didn't show his face. We can't see what he looks like. However, we can ask the people in this dojo. Someone must have seen him before. After a moment of silence, Zhu Hong suddenly reached out and turned off the screen. He said in a hoarse voice, "He's an expert. An expert who can cause an earthquake with a stomp of his feet. An expert he couldn't face directly." He turned to look at his disciples and sighed. "We have to admit what we did. There's no need to make a big deal out of it. It won't be good for anyone. Anyway, it's only affecting this dojo for now. Be careful in other aspects. Don't make any more mistakes." "Yes, Master," the disciples answered listlessly. They understood that this matter had to be dealt with quietly. They just couldn't take it lying down and wanted to find out who was the culprit. Now that they had calmed down, those thoughts of overestimating themselves also faded away. After Lu Cheng enjoyed his afternoon tea, he opened his mailbox and saw Smith's reply. He said that Mizuki's fighting standard, even with the addition of his spirit cultivation, was only at the formidable level. He wasn't even at the outstanding level. However, because of this, he was very careful about his own safety and was very careful when he went out. He wasn't like Joseph, who was strong and fearless. He was careless and careless, which made it easy for him to be ambushed. Mizuki belonged to the type that the entire Connecticut city knew that he was a mafia boss and the leader of villains, but there was no way to put him in jail. He knew this very well, so he was on guard everywhere and was very careful in everything he did. He did not want to be punished by a certain superhero one day. Most of the superheroes in the United States had their own ideas. They mainly focused on stopping crime and capturing criminals. They would not seriously violate the law and directly kill their targets. However, there were always exceptions in the world. There were also many superheroes who did not believe in the current system. For example, the danger level judge. His slogan was justice. For this reason, Mizuki not only cultivated a group of capable subordinates, but also hired professional security company personnel with high salaries. He also won over 2 outstanding spirit cultivators. Supplemented by other investments, his defense could be said to be impregnable. Over the years, it wasn't that there hadn't been superheroes who had ideas about him, but they had all returned in defeat. Looks like the formidable level here is the level of those who have just entered the dance stage. Lu Cheng made a judgment based on Smith's description and recalled the information. According to Smith, with his strength, if he was willing to pay the price and ignore everything, there was still hope for him to kill Mizuki under heavy protection. However, if he did that, there would be no way to clean up the mess. He would leave behind many loose ends, which would be very troublesome. Therefore, he advised him to wait patiently and not be impatient. Once there was an opportunity, he should be notified immediately. Lu Cheng was always an obedient person. He shook his head and threw the matter of Mizuki to the back of his mind. He started reading about Bishop Pavel. Smith was sure that Pavel was hiding in the Holy Top Church. However, that was the center of Catholicism in Connecticut. With Archbishop Kantsev in charge, it was impossible to sneak in. Kantsev, a formidable mighty one, was equivalent to a physical invulnerability expert. Connecticut was one of the few big cities in the United States. It was the financial center, so there was no shortage of physical invulnerability experts. Other than Kantsev, there was also Grand Elder Stephen of the Jaruga sect, Grand Teacher Cisco of Kagri, a spirit cultivator society that had split off from the Jaruga sect. There were also 3 participants in the top professional competitions. There was also a formidable one in the government security system. However, the information was confidential and rarely circulated. Due to various reasons, Smith felt that the time wasn't ripe to challenge Pavel. He believed that Pavel wouldn't be able to bear the loneliness, and would leave the Holy Top Church sooner or later. Then he would be monitored. A person who had been distorting his desires for years could restrain himself for a short period of time, but not for long. All right. Luching couldn't help but laugh. He reformatted the letters in his mailbox and exited the app. He stopped thinking about Mizuski and Pavel and started searching for terms like spirit cultivator and psychic in high spirits. Yenjika only had one class in the afternoon, followed by a group discussion. Luching didn't have to wait long before he received the news of the rendezvous. He hurried over and returned home with the girl. Just as they got out of the car and were about to enter the house, they heard a knocking sound coming from their neighbor's house. Looking over, they saw a middle-aged man with a light yellow beard mowing the lawn with a push weeder. Seeing the couple looking over, he waved and greeted them with a warm smile. Looking back at the messy and long lawn, Yenjika blushed and said, "I forgot to hire someone to mow the lawn for the past 2 weeks." Seeing that it was still early, Luching got an idea and said eagerly, "Why don't I do it?" This was the responsibility of the main labor force in the family. "Sure, I remember there are weeders in the garage." Yenjika was also excited. It felt like a child playing house. Hitting it off, the two entered the garage and found a stack of machines. Then they took out their phones at the same time, lowered their heads and started typing away. After a few seconds, Yenjika stole a glance at Lu Chung and asked curiously, "Chung, what are you looking at?" "I'm searching for tips on weeding in America. Guide to lawn repair." Lu Chung showed the screen. "What a coincidence, me too." Yenjika's lips curved into a professional smile. After that, the two burst out laughing. They felt that they were indeed new teenagers who grew up in the age of the internet. Nowadays, it's a habit to ask the internet before doing anything. After some discussion, Lu Chung moved the weeder out of the garage. As he was preparing, he saw Yenjika hiding in the shadows with empty hands. "What are you going to do?" Lu Chung chuckled. Yenjika waved her fist solemnly and said, "I'm going to cheer you on." "You might as well cheer 666. Luching couldn't help but laugh. He retracted his gaze and began to push the weeder to clean the plants that were growing recklessly. At first he was still a little unfamiliar with it, but after a while he could hear the force of the weeder. Gradually, it became easier and more experienced to use it. He mowed the lawn neatly. During this process, he exchanged glances with the uncle next door and nodded at him from time to time. They really felt like neighbors. Yenjika, who was in the shade, watched him work with her dimples. Her eyes were gentle. Before 4:30, Luching finished the lawn. Yenjika, who had shouted good luck to show that she wasn't just a spectator, came over and helped with the follow-up. After busying himself for a while, Luching glanced at his little fairy who had a strand of grass stuck to her face at some point in time. "Why don't we cook tonight? I've already studied the recipe seriously." As he spoke, he reached out and pinched the weed, returning her beautiful face to her fair and clean face. "But I haven't seen the recipe yet." Yenjika blinked. She wanted to try but was also a little nervous. "What are you afraid of? I'll teach you." Luching waved his hand generously and continued, "Besides, you're so smart. It'll be the same if you read it live." "That makes sense." Yenjika was full of confidence in her own intelligence. After informing Aunt Du, the girl took out an apron and put it on Lu Chung before putting it on herself. "What should we do first?" she asked with sparkling eyes. "Stir-fried beef." Lu Chung flipped to the corresponding page of the recipe and placed it on the counter. "Okay. Yenjuka opened the fridge and picked up a piece of beef. After looking at it for a while, she said, "This is meat. Empress Dowager said it's most suitable for roasting and frying. The recipe says tenderloin." Lu Qing tilted his head and glanced at it. After a while, the girl found the tenderloin and watched a certain superpower user defrosting the ice with his hands. Lifting the kitchen utensils, Lu Qing controlled his body. The knife moved quickly, leaving afterimages. After a while, the tenderloin was reduced to strips of meat. "My knife skills aren't bad, right?" Lu Qing boasted proudly. "Although I've never practiced knife skills, my senior sister is known as the Black and White Divine Knife." "Awesome," Yenjuka praised. She took out her favorite kitchen weighing tool and meticulously calculated how many grams of sweet potato starch, how much water, and how much oil were needed according to the recipe. She concentrated on mixing them with the shredded beef to make it more tender and smooth. Lu Qing started cutting onions at the side. Frost covered the onions and buried the feeling that rushed into his eyes. As he cut, he turned his head and looked at Yenjuka, who seemed to be doing some important experiment. Looking at her plain white apron, he suddenly felt that Yenjuka was also cute like this. Retracting his gaze, Lu Qing saw the same apron he was wearing. He suddenly had a strange feeling and couldn't help but laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Yenjuka turned her head with a confused look. "An hour or two ago, I was thinking about how to get rid of powerful criminals like Mizuki and Pavel. But now I'm busy cleaning the lawn, cutting vegetables, and cooking." Lu Qing described his feelings as he straightened the apron on him. While he was researching the lawn mower, he had already talked to his fairy about Mizuki and Pavel. Yenjuka pondered for a few seconds before nodding solemnly. "This is probably called being able to make a living in the hall and enter the kitchen." As she finished speaking, a light smile appeared on her face. In the evening at a small gathering, Huang Shiwen, whose face was still a little pale, sat on the sofa in the corner with a glass of champagne in her hand. "Hey, are you in a bad mood?" A young man with dyed white hair walked over and asked with a smile. He was of mixed blood and had a pair of deep, dark eyes that were extremely charming. "Can you tell?" Huang Shiwen didn't know this man, and replied politely. The white-haired young man laughed softly and said, "You are jealous of someone and afraid of someone. Am I right?" "How did you know?" Huang Shiwen blurted out in surprise, full of shock. "Because I'm communicating directly with your heart." The white-haired young man raised his glass and took a sip. He said enigmatically, "Do you need my help to deal with them?" "No, no need." Huang Shiwen shook her head in denial, shocked and scared. "Yenjuka probably didn't say anything bad about me, and Lu Qing didn't have any intention of dealing with me. There's no need to create more trouble." "Okay." The white-haired young man didn't say anything else and left with a smile. "Laura, what were you guys talking about just now?" The host of the party, Jennifer, came over. "Nothing." Huang Shiwen didn't want to talk about it anymore. Jennifer smiled and said, "He's a powerful spirit cultivator. You can ask him for help if you're in trouble." "Not at the moment." Huang Shiwen denied again. Jennifer nodded and said, "All right. Then let's enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Let go of the restraints of life. Let go of the outer layer of flesh, and enjoy the party to our heart's content." When it was close to the weekend, Lu Qing suddenly received an email from Smith. "Mizuki will be out for a rave party. There might be a chance." Chapter 509. At the entrance of a villa with a fountain and statues in front of it, Mizuki said excitedly to the spirit cultivation instructor beside him, "House, I feel great this time. I'm about to come into contact with the world of pure spirit." He was less than 40 years old, tall, with deep eye sockets and a straight nose. His eyes were light green, and the contours of his face were soft. He was a good-looking man, and he was born with a childlike temperament. He didn't look like a gang leader who committed murder, arson, smuggling, drug trafficking, and forced women into prostitution. The spirit cultivation instructor was a mixed-blood youth in his 20s. His hair was dyed white, and his eyes were light brown. They were dark and deep, as if they were connected to another mysterious and strange world. Even when standing next to Mizuki, who was much older than him, he did not look young and inexperienced. Instead, he looked more mysterious. "Very good. Try to maintain this feeling. Repeat the meditation tonight. I believe we can become the same kind of people, House replied with a smile. His body exuded a sense of relaxation, relief, and peace. The other spirit cultivator was in his 40s. His eyes were filled with madness, as if he was still reminiscing about the carnival just now and the feeling of being refreshed after breaking free from restraints. He and House stood on either side of Mizuki, surrounded by professional bodyguards and gang gunmen. They boarded a bulletproof car. In a room on the first floor of the villa, Jennifer, whose cheeks were still flushed, swirled her wine glass. Her eyes were bright as she looked at Huang Xiwen, who was completely relaxed. How do you feel? I feel light, as if my body is weightless. My depression and pain have been vented by yelling and screaming. I'm very, very happy, Huang Xiwen replied with a slightly dazed look in her eyes. Although her body was tired, her spirit was satisfied. However, it was her first time attending a party like this. Soon she was worried. Senior Jennifer, will this be addictive? You don't have to worry. This is the secret medicine of a certain spiritual cultivation society. It does contain traces of marijuana, but as you know, you can also search for it. It's even less addictive than cigarettes. Look at me, do I show any signs of addiction? Jennifer explained in a gentle voice, guiding him patiently. Yes, Senior, you look very healthy and energetic, Huang Xiwen said with half certainty and half envy. His senior sister easily dealt with the classes and the party, unlike him who was full of pressure. Jennifer smiled and said, Laura, do you know that there was a party on the second floor just now? I know. Huang Xiwen had been curious about this for a long time, but without an invitation, she couldn't pass through the burly man at the stairs. It's a secret party held by the Spirit Cultivator Society. It helps you release your stress and break free from the shackles of the external world and your body. You can truly see your unique self and see your own gem-like soul. Not only will it help you relax and achieve a wonderful peace, it will also allow you to experience extreme happiness. From there, you can break out of your prison and gain the opportunity to communicate with the pure spiritual world. Jennifer described in a dreamy tone. Seeing that Huang Xiwen was still holding back, she changed her words. This is the most popular party in the upper class. There are senators, lawyers, professors, and CEOs of various companies. The spirit cultivator you met earlier is their mentor. He's very powerful, much more powerful than a superpower user. Huang Xiwen's heart skipped a beat when she heard the words upper-class society, but she still had some doubts about it, so she didn't dare to ask more. At the entrance of the villa, after Mizuki and the two spirit cultivators boarded the bulletproof sedan, the professional bodyguards didn't immediately leave to board the black car behind. Instead, they stood guard by the 4 doors. As the bulletproof sedan started moving slowly, they held onto the door and ran in small steps, maintaining their previous positions. Only when the bulletproof sedan started moving did they retract their arms, turn around, and enter the second car that was moving forward but had its door open. The whole process was very professional. At this moment, a figure jumped out from the shadows outside the villa. He wore a baseball cap that was pressed very low on his head, and a pair of black-rimmed glasses rested on the bridge of his nose, covering half of his face. The exposed part of his face was sparkling, and the color was chaotic. His muscles were tight, and he was unusually thin. In the blink of an eye, Lu Cheng had reached the side of the bulletproof car, as if he had shrunk the distance between them. He gathered his chi and blood and exploded them, expanding his right arm. He opened his palm and pressed it hard on the trunk of the car amid the flames. Screech, screech, screech. An ear-piercing screech of friction sounded instantly. The rear wheels of the bulletproof sedan were pressed to the ground. They spun wildly at first, then slowed down rapidly. Golden sparks flew everywhere. Both of Lu Cheng's legs were pressed inward, and his muscles were exaggerated. His entire body's strength was twisted into one. Cracks appeared all around him and spread outwards. He pressed the button to stop the car that had already started moving. At this sudden change, the car behind instinctively braked, shaking the bodyguards and preventing them from reaching out their large-caliber pistols from the window. House, who was in the car in front, had already reacted. Dark flames flashed in his eyes, and a distorted shadow appeared in front of him. At this moment, Lu Qing didn't make any unnecessary movements. He shook his left arm and stretched it out. His 5 fingers expanded, and his small muscles and veins bulged. He grabbed the door of the car's fuel tank with dark red flames in between. With the sound of metal breaking, the small door was forcefully pulled open. Lu Qing took advantage of the momentum and stepped back, avoiding the shadow that came through the door and the bodyguard's bullets. They steadied themselves, extended their guns from the window, and completed a round of rapid fire. Lu Qing retreated again and again. During this process, he suddenly swung his right arm forward and shot out a highly condensed and heavy fireball. It accurately ignited the shadow and drilled into the fuel tank. No. Witnessing this scene, Mizuski and the leader of the bodyguards let out earth-shattering screams. Boom. A huge explosion immediately sounded, swallowing all other sounds. A terrifying fireball rose from the inside of the bulletproof car and rolled out, tearing apart the steel plates, shattering the glass and burning fiercely red. It was magnificent to the extreme, but also terrifying to the extreme. The bodyguards in the car behind were momentarily stunned. Resisting the fear of a second explosion, they quickly got out of the car and split into 2 groups. One group was to chase and shoot in Lu Qing's direction, while the other group was to try and rescue him. At this moment, the flames that completely covered the car in front suddenly split apart. A chilly wind blew in all directions and dyed the car green. In the car that was left with only the skeleton, Spirit Cultivator House's eyes glowed with darkness. His clothes were tattered, and his face was pale. He kicked open the broken car door and walked out. Shadows wrapped around his left arm, and his right hand pulled Mizuski. This mafia tycoon was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, and his body was covered in terrifying burn marks. Although his injuries weren't fatal, they were quite serious, and he almost fainted on the spot. As for the other Spirit Cultivator and his right-hand man, even though they were stronger, they were also in a bad state and had almost lost their ability to fight. Lu Qing had retreated to the back of the flower bed. As the bodyguards got out of the car and House extinguished the fire, he reached into his pocket with his left hand, took out a coin and flicked it out. Clang! The coin was distorted, creating a streak of reddish gold sparks that shot towards Mizuski like lightning. House cursed under his breath and threw Mizuski at his feet. He extended his palms forward, creating more shadows to meet the bomb. Bam! The coin exploded into pieces. After piercing through the layers of shadows, its power finally faded. The bodyguards covered Lu Qing's position with fire, forcing him to retreat again and leave the scene. At this moment, a bullet was fired from a silencer behind the crowd. It silently entered Mizuski's head, causing his eyes to widen abruptly. His pupils protruded, and he lost control of his bladder. He died with a grievance. On the huge stone sculpture in the fountain, the shadow that had been lurking for a long time threw out a few thin threads that stuck to the corner of the villa. With a whoosh, it disappeared. Seeing this, Lu Qing quickly retreated. He didn't want to stay any longer. After a few ups and downs, he had left the crowd far behind. After sprinting for a while, he suddenly stopped. The ice mirror of mind reflected a shadow that was following him. It was like a face, and it vaguely resembled House's. For an inhuman with a mutated body, it was easy to use superpowers within a small area. However, beyond a certain distance, there was no way to control it. Spirit cultivators, on the other hand, didn't seem to be restricted. Lu Qing didn't bat an eyelid. In his mind, he sketched out the ancient army character, turned its murderous aura into a spike, and shot it at the shadow. This was something he could only do after his breakthrough in the ice mirror. It was also a simplified version of the 9 words formula, and similarly, it was a reduction in power in exchange for faster usage. With a poof, the spike hit the shadow and obliterated it like a nemesis. At the entrance of the villa, House suddenly let out a scream. Clutching his head, he fell to the ground in pain. His body twitched, and it was a terrifying sight. The bodyguards looked at each other for a few seconds. Just as they were about to start rescuing him, the flames in the car flared up again, causing a second explosion. Boom! The loud explosion scared the men and women in the villa. Some called the police, while others tried to peek outside. "Don't be afraid. With Mr. House around, it won't be a problem," Jennifer comforted Huang Shiwen. "There's also Mr. Zaire. He's a powerful figure with a reputation. Zaire was Mizuski's alias. Is Mr. House very powerful? Huang Xiwen asked in trepidation. Very powerful. He's a very, very powerful spirit cultivator, Jennifer confirmed. After waiting for a few minutes, the explosions and gunshots outside had stopped. They cautiously looked out the window and saw a luxury car reduced to a skeleton. Mizuski and House were moved to the side, motionless. The villa was completely silent, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Huang Xiwen shook her head, feeling that this would be a nightmare she would never be able to get rid of. 2 blocks away, Lu Qing met up with Smith. He changed out of his takeout clothes and sneakers, and turned them into ashes. Hearing the cracking sounds from Lu Cheng's bones, seeing him grow bigger and taller, bulging his facial muscles, and becoming more defined, Smith couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh, how magical!" "A little trick," Lu Qing replied with a smile. After encountering gods in the void, his control over his body was enough to achieve bone shrinkage. Smith started the car and drove off into the distance. After a moment of silence, he said with trepidation, "I'm crazy. I've been a secret agent for 5 years, and I've never participated in any dangerous missions. Neither have I done anything that a superhero should do. This is the first time I've experienced it. A bullet was fired, and a life was lost. Mizuski and the spirit cultivator beside him deserve to die, but under the circumstances where they haven't been convicted, I feel like I'm committing a crime." Lu Qing glanced at Smith, the corner of his mouth twitching. Smith, calm down. I didn't know you were so talkative. Understood. Calm down. Smith took a deep breath, regaining his professionalism as an agent. Lu Qing pondered for a few seconds before saying, "Do you think Mizuski doesn't deserve to die? If there was strong evidence to convict him, others would have done it long ago. If there wasn't, even if they caught him, he could still find someone to take the blame and leave the court easily." "I know." Smith tilted his head and looked at Lu Qing. "I just feel like I'm no longer Spider-Man. I need to find a concept that suits me." "Lu, why are you so calm? Don't you feel conflicted? Isn't that obvious? I'm not the one who killed him in the end." Lu Qing thought for a moment, then answered seriously, "Maybe it's because my legal awareness is weak." Smith was at a loss. He didn't say anything else. After taking a detour, he returned the gun to the subordinate of Mizuski's enemy. Finally, he sent Lu Qing to the north of Connecticut. After entering the house, Lu Qing looked at Yenjika, who was still in her pajamas, waiting in the living room. He smiled and said, "Done. So easy." "Details?" Yenjika heaved a sigh of relief, her eyes shining brightly. Lu Qing was about to describe when he heard his stomach rumbling. He smiled sheepishly and said, "I'll make something to eat first. I'm starving after this." "I'll make it." Yenjika raised her arm eagerly. "What do you want to eat? Do you have noodles?" Lu Qing smiled casually. "There's flour. You can make your own noodles." Yenjika jogged into the kitchen and called out to Lu Qing. She pointed at the flour and said, "I've made it. You need it." "Aren't you going to make it?" Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Yenjika pursed her lips and said innocently, "You have more strength in your hands." "All right." Lu Qing smiled and put on his apron. When Huang Xiwen and the rest were questioned by the police, he brought a bowl of noodles into the dining room. He watched as Yenjika poured the leftovers that he had heated up earlier into the bowl as toppings. Then she started eating happily. Occasionally, he would tell the girl about what had happened. What a wonderful night. Chapter 510. After finishing his noodles and soup, Lu Qing put down his bowl and chopsticks. He flipped a coin in his left hand and started complaining about Smith in a low voice. "That spider is really something. I just casually mentioned it at the start because I thought it would be too risky to go on my own. But he agreed right away, and even tried to perfect the plan in high spirits. I thought he was indeed the head of the Secret Service. His mental fortitude was off the charts and he had seen all kinds of storms. Who knew he would become as listless as a little lamb? And kept nagging me that this was against his ideals, and that he didn't deserve to be Spider-Man anymore. Why didn't he reject it earlier?" Yenjika rested her chin on one hand and listened quietly. Her black, jewel-like eyes looked at Lu Cheng from head to toe and then fell on his left hand, which was flipping the coins quickly. After a moment of silence, she said in an uncertain tone, "Cheng, you're actually not very calm either, right?" Huh. Lu Cheng was stunned and instinctively wanted to deny it. But when he glanced at the flipping coin, it was as if he saw his own heart in the same state. It looked calm and peaceful with only a slight ripple. But in fact, it was tense and surging in the depths. Yeah, after visiting Joseph, I couldn't help but abuse the mineral water bottle. It turned cold and then hot, then cold and then hot again. I only managed to calm down when I saw Ku. As a law-abiding student for more than 10 or 20 years, he was not like what he had said to Smith just now, that he had a weak awareness of the law and was a natural outlaw. What he longed for was never a life of fear and fear. Although he had experienced killing the ninth pin of the dark sect, and improved his adaptability at the edge of life and death, and tempered his state of mind, he was either involved or not involved. Plus, he had his sect to deal with the aftermath, so he didn't have to worry. It was fundamentally different from ambushing the butcher in a foreign country, or eliminating Mizuski. In the end, I'm just a fledgling in this aspect. And I don't really like doing things like this. Lu Cheng was stared at by the girl who seemed to be able to see through his soul. His thoughts were in turmoil and finally turned into a sigh. Come here. Let me give you a hug. Okay. Yenjika left her seat and walked to Lu Cheng. She allowed him to stand up and open his arms to hug her tightly. The familiar scent wafted into his nose and lingered in his mind. Her beautiful body was slender and warm. Their breaths seemed to resonate. Lu Cheng's heart slowly calmed down. He watched, as the feelings of anxiety, uneasiness, and tension slowly returned to the lake. There was no more undercurrent. During this process, Yenjika patted his back clumsily and awkwardly, just like how he gently stroked the girl's hair. After getting rid of the butcher and Mizuski, the other criminals in Connecticut will either not involve you or fall within the range that Aunt Du can handle. There's only Pavel left. He's hiding in the Holy Top Church, and won't dare to sneak out for a few months. Moreover, his main targets are the underage children. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else for me to do. I can relax and enjoy life. Lu Cheng's voice was low. Yenjika's comforting actions gradually became more familiar and smooth. She buried her head in Lu Cheng's shoulder and answered in a low voice. That's good, that's good. After hugging for a long time, the two of them separated. Lu Cheng picked up the bowl and chopsticks and smiled. His body and mind relaxed. Hello, your dishwasher is online. You make it sound like I'm eating. Yenjika looked at Lu Cheng in disdain. She chuckled and teased. When someone came back, he was so relaxed. He acted as though he had just gone out to buy groceries, and that making noodles when he was hungry was more important than superhero matters. In the end, it was all an act. At this point, she turned and smiled. She muttered to herself in a low voice, "Then I'm relieved." After washing the dishes, the couple took separate showers and lay side by side on the bed. With their backs against the pillows, they covered themselves with a thin blanket and scrolled through their phones. Hey, our overseas students group chat is saying that Senior Jennifer is involved in Mizuski's case. Yenjika's crossed legs swayed as she turned her body to the side. There's news already? Lu Cheng hadn't scrolled through the news yet. As for the forums and forums of foreigners and other places, he was still confused and didn't look into it. A classmate's uncle migrated to Connecticut a long time ago to do business. His cousin happened to be working at the police station, Yenjika explained. She moved the phone and herself closer to Lu Cheng to read the follow-up. According to the classmate's description, Jennifer, an active figure at Connecticut University, had been controlled by Mizuski since a long time ago to help him find girls of good quality. The usual method was to invite them to parties, and after they had played together a few times and got familiar with each other, he would lure them to take the secret drug, in order to seek higher levels of enjoyment. Then he would slowly increase the dosage until it became an addiction. Finally, he would introduce them to rave parties, where they would indulge their body and mind and fall into depravity. They would become a tool for spirit cultivators, or a tool for Mizuski to rope in members of the upper class. When they got bored and didn't have the talent in this area, they would be thrown to the bottom of the class and controlled to make money. In the process, the girls who were seduced would, in turn, become like Jennifer, pulling in more unsuspecting girls, causing the number of victims to snowball. However, not everyone would succumb. It should be said that most of the girls participated a few times, but after realizing that something was wrong, they would rationally refuse and not come again. Of course, there were also poor victims who were forcibly drugged. How can this be? Yinjuka was dumbfounded. She was so angry that her voice trembled a little. Unlike the girls Joseph killed, she didn't know and had no relationship with them. This time, many of the victims involved in this case were students from Connecticut University. Yinjuka didn't discriminate against the atmosphere of parties in America. She just felt that it was a waste of time and could easily lead to scandals, so she wasn't willing to participate. Who knew that some parties were actually dangerous, like a venomous snake that looked colorful but was actually terrifying? Lu Qing felt lucky and no longer had any doubts about his previous actions. What's the point of bullying girls? And it was easier to implicate Ku than he expected. It's good that Mizuski died. Those spirit cultivators are also detestable. He only regretted that he didn't have the chance to punish them. Yinjuka complained for a while. She was actually a little traumatized by the parties. The police didn't reveal who was involved in the parties out of consideration for the victims. Chung, you did a great job this time. After venting, the girl looked up at her husband with bright eyes. Out of habit, Lu Qing wanted to flirt and ask what the reward was. However, he was still in a state of calmness after the excitement. When he saw Ku's serious expression and bright eyes, he immediately felt that everything had paid off. I like this reward. He chuckled softly. Huh. Yinjuka was stunned. She didn't know what her Chung had pulled on again. Since when did I reward him? After calming down, the girl browsed the news again. Finally, she found a few reports in a row. The deliverer man reappears. The infamous Mizuski was executed. The deliverer man is not a hero of order. Crazy party, deadly party. Yinjuka's English reading ability was much better than Lu Cheng's. She browsed quickly and translated. According to the investigation at the scene, the deliverer man had the help of powerful companions. This may be the reason why they could kill Mizuski while the other heroes couldn't. The surveillance equipment at the scene was damaged and couldn't record the key parts. However, we were able to extract the footage and directly see the deliverer man. He is less than 1.7 meters tall and dressed like a typical delivery boy. He wore a baseball cap and very large black-rimmed glasses. His skin color was indistinguishable. He was the type with thin cheeks. He was good at making explosions. His hands were covered in flames, so no fingerprints were left. This basically matches the description in Cole's brief statement. Basically matches. Yinjuka laughed and turned to look at Lu Qing. Her Chung was already 1.78 meters tall after his second puberty. He wasn't handsome, but he was a good young man with defined lines, full muscles, and a masculine face. If they are really the same, then I'll have a headache. Lu Qing laughed. He deeply felt that the bone shrinking skill was very useful. After chatting for a while, Yinjuka translated the comments under the news. The American public was roughly divided into two camps. A group of people believed that the deliverer man was not a superhero, but an evil person. If he could kill the infamous Mizuski today without any evidence, he could kill someone else tomorrow based on his own judgment. Perhaps he could kill someone else tomorrow based on his own judgment. This was a factor that caused social unrest. They wanted to catch the deliverer man as soon as possible. The other camp believed that the American system was corrupt and hopeless. The judiciary had become a toy for the rich and powerful, and could no longer uphold justice. At this time, it required a brave knight to judge and punish the bad guys. They claimed that the deliverer man was their idol and a true knight. After translating the most popular comments, Yinjuka chuckled and said, I don't know about other things, but I'm sure those rebellious youths in America worship you. It doesn't feel right that everyone is wearing black-rimmed glasses to imitate me. Lu Cheng's imagination ran wild. The couple talked and laughed for a long time until their biological clocks came, and they both fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Yinjuka woke up slowly. She wanted to turn over but found that her right hand was tightly gripped, and she couldn't break free. She propped her head up and looked beside her. Although Lu Qing was sound asleep, his hand was firmly gripping hers and wouldn't let go. The gentleness and calmness in his eyes faded away and he became like a child. The next morning, the couple woke up on time and started practicing. Because of the experience of mastering the other characters, Yenjika finally got a feel for the fighting formula after a few days of practice. This made her very happy and she even ate 5 more mouthfuls of breakfast. After they parted ways outside the campus, Lu Qing jogged to the Msasi martial arts gym. Along the way, he saw many imitators wearing baseball caps and black-rimmed glasses. He could only twitch his mouth in response. In the following week, Lu Qing was well-behaved because Pavel never left the Holy Top Church. He even didn't find an opportunity to challenge the Grandmaster of Martial Arts of the Jaruga sect, as planned to avoid the limelight. In the blink of an eye, it was almost the end of the month. It was time for Lu Qing to return. In the lobby of Orion Airport, Smith heaved a long sigh of relief when he saw the reluctant couple through the surveillance camera. During this period of time, he had come to realize that he had deviated from the path of Spider-Man, ever since he couldn't get a search warrant for Joseph. That was why he agreed to Lu's suggestion of working together to eliminate Mizuski. However, Lu was a dangerous person. If he stayed in Connecticut all the time, it was easy for him to cause trouble, which would exhaust him to deal with the aftermath. Phew, thank God he's finally leaving. Smith made a cross piously. Chapter 511. In front of the security checkpoint, Lu Qing was carrying a 20-inch trolley box, which was filled with the loot he got from shopping with Yenjika. There were new clothes for him from head to toe and gifts for Lu Jisheng, Qi Feng, and the others. It's so good to have a wife. She's so thoughtful. Lu Qing looked at Yenjika, who still looked tired. He tucked her hair behind her ear and said with a smile, "I'm going in. Go home quickly. Sleep early tonight. Get some sleep." Yenjika was touched at first, but as she listened, she became embarrassed and angry. She opened her eyes, shook her right arm, and punched Lu Qing in the abdomen. Her move was smooth, but she didn't use any strength. "Who's to blame?" she whispered, gritting her teeth. She waved and turned around, pretending to be cool. She walked slowly to Du Yen, who was waiting for her at the elevator. Lu Qing held his stomach and stood up straight. He looked at his little fairy's back with a smile and muttered to himself, "Should I post a question on the forum? My wife is getting less and less shy and more violent. What should I do?" Well, they'll definitely answer, "Show off your love, get lost," or "I entered the wrong post, I'll get lost myself." While thinking, he watched Yenjika walk away. When she was about to enter the stairs, Yenjika finally couldn't hold back her emotions anymore. She turned around and looked at Lu Qing, who was still standing there, not moving at all. Their eyes met. She couldn't help but curse under her breath. Idiot! Because they wouldn't be apart for too long this time, as they would come again next month. And because they already had experience, the two of them weren't as reluctant to part as before. After looking at each other for more than 10 seconds, they waved again, entered the elevator, and went through the security check. They skillfully switched to online dating mode. Lu Qing's flight was smooth. The flight took off on time, and there was no bad news in the weather forecast. Smith resisted the urge to wave his fist and celebrate. He rearranged the surveillance reports during this period, threw out a spider thread, and rushed into the director's office. It was as if he was running to freedom. Thank God, amen. In a spacious and clean hospital with few patients, a brown-haired middle-aged man with a stiff face and missing an arm looked through the window at the unconscious house in the intensive care unit. He said to the person beside him, "He's close to brain death." "I know," the black-robed man with green eyes answered calmly. It was hard to tell how old he was. His appearance was ordinary, but he had the temperament of a scholar. There was also an illusory sense of mystery that did not belong to the real world, making people admire him and willing to listen to his every word. "Lucas, I have a suggestion. Let me take him away. You should know that we have the artificial weapons project that will allow House to live in another way," the one-armed man said solemnly. Lucas, who looked like a mysterious scholar, was silent for a moment before he nodded indiscernibly. "I have no objections." The one-armed man heaved a sigh of relief and asked, "Haven't you found any useful clues about the deliverer man?" No psychic is not omnipotent. In the absence of a direction, even a great teacher can't do anything. Lucas replied slowly, but as long as he appears a few more times, we will definitely be able to catch him. Wherever he goes, there will be traces left behind. The only difference is how many traces there are. Once we accumulate enough traces, things will be simple. May God bless you, the one-armed man said out of habit. But as soon as he finished speaking, he felt that it was inappropriate. God would not bless this group of evil spirit cultivators. It was more likely that he would send down holy light to purify them. Lucas had obviously thought of this as well. He smiled mockingly, took one last look at House in the ICU, and turned to leave. Lucas, there's one more thing. You have to complete the dissection as soon as possible and throw out a few people to calm the public opinion. The one-armed man raised his voice and reminded him. We're doing it now. Lucas turned around and smiled. Gore, when this is over, I'll invite you to my private island for a vacation. My pleasure. The one-armed man imagined the scene on the island and felt a burning sensation in his lower abdomen. When Lu Qing flew to Songqing, it was the eve of the 11th. The members of the martial arts club would have a 3-day holiday. He planned to go back to Xiaoshan on the 2nd of October to help his parents move and send gifts to each of them. After half a year of drying the new house, they could finally move in. As soon as he entered the dormitory, Lu Qing saw Zhao Chang, Zhang Jingye, and Qiu Zhigao returning from self-study. Hey, you're early. Hey, you're back. Both parties greeted each other in surprise. At this time, Zhao Chang smiled a little embarrassedly. Cheng, let's have dinner together tonight. It's my treat. Your treat? Why? Lu Cheng sized up the head of the dormitory, Comrade Chang. He wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses and combed his hair neatly. Although he looked old, he had a sense of maturity, as expected of a scholar. Cheng, you've been living a simple life. You don't even know the Han dynasty, let alone the Wei and Jin dynasties. Kai Zongming came over from the dormitory next door and dropped a line. After all, he was admitted to Songqing University with his own ability. What's going on? Lu Qing was curious. Qiu Zhigao explained enviously. Chang has a girlfriend. He has to treat. Girlfriend? The one from Songqing Normal University? Lu Qing asked. That was Zhao Chang's high school classmate. Yes. Zhao Chang nodded happily and shyly. Didn't you say that there was an elder who taught you to study more when you're young and not to waste time on love? Lu Qing teased him with amusement. People still have to consider the course of history in this life. Zhao Chang sighed with satisfaction. Speak human language. Lu Qing interrupted his explanation. Zhao Chang scratched his head helplessly. I just can't help it. I like her. What can I do? I think you're pretty good at taking action. Lu Qing praised from the bottom of his heart. It's okay. It's mainly because she likes me too. Zhao Chang beamed with joy. Classmate Little Ming said disdainfully. They talk every day. You go to my school and I go to yours on weekends. They'll either be lovers or enemies. Friendship between classmates? Who are you kidding? Didn't I say before that Chang will be B? He made a gesture of holding his hand in the palm of his hand. Zhao Chang could only smile awkwardly. After a burst of laughter, Lu Qing asked casually, Where are we going for dinner tonight? Let's go to Songqing Normal University. They're on the old campus. There's a street full of delicious food next to them, Zhao Chang suggested. Songqing Normal University was originally called Songqing Normal University. Later, because of a dog called Chow Chow, people automatically changed it. The old campus of Songqing Normal University is a bit far. Kai Zongming said hesitantly. Hey Casanova, that's not like you. Lu Qing was stunned and joked. Why not? Kai Zongming glanced at his best friend. If it were you in the past, you would definitely say that Songqing Normal University is a good place. There are so many beautiful women. As a married man, although you won't fool around, you can feast your eyes and be happy. How could you say it's far away? Lu Qing mocked talker, without holding back. Kai Zongming was stunned for a moment, then sighed deeply. Things are different now. Look, I have special training in the morning and homework in the afternoon and at night. I'm not like you, who have the protection of the academy and school, so I'm not afraid of exams. The rest of my time is only enough to chat with my Fang Yuan. I have to make use of every opportunity to play games. How can I be in the mood to look at beautiful women? My current state is the standard of a dead heart, dumbfounded. Haha, I'm happy to hear you say that. Lu Qing patted Little Ming's shoulder. Kai Zhongming curled his lips and said, I was going to advise you not to live like a monk when your girlfriend isn't around. How good would it be to be a little more sunny? But now I understand that it's so *king tiring. How can I be in the mood and energy? After a short rest, the 5 of them set off. On the way, they talked about how they started. Zhao Chong was a natural success, and both of them had a good impression of each other at about the same time. Zhang Jingye was the one who chased after girls. During that time, he was often invited by Wu Qian to go on a trip. As for the Casanova, time revealed a person's heart. After understanding his feelings, it didn't take much effort for him to be together with Fang Yuan. It seems that I'm the only one who really got her. Lu Qing sighed with emotion. As soon as he finished speaking, he remembered Yan Zhika, who was far away in America. When they parted just now, he already missed her. 40 minutes later, they arrived at the north gate of Songqing Normal University and met Zhao Chong's old classmate and current girlfriend, Wang Shi. She was about 1.6 meters tall with fair skin. You know my roommate's, Lu Cheng. He has to wear glasses when he goes out now. Otherwise, he'll block the traffic. Zhao Chong introduced his roommates to his girlfriend. Hello, there are 2 girls in our dorm who are your fans. Wang Shi greeted politely. I can only say thank you. Lu Cheng replied with a smile. Kai Zhongming, I've told you before, talker, the guy who only has one mouth left. Zhang Jingye, model worker, and old Qiu, the only single dog left in our small dormitory. You have to introduce them to him. Zhao Chong proudly said one by one. While chatting casually, they entered the food street near the north gate and found a famous barbecue restaurant. While waiting, Lu Qing talked about the local customs of America. Everyone listened with great interest. They were interested in the social phenomenon of superheroes. At this moment, his phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. Who is it? Lu Qing suspected that it was a scam or a sales call, but he still chose to answer in case he missed something important. As soon as the call connected, a magnetic voice came from the other side. Lu Qing? Yes, you are? Lu Qing asked in confusion. The other side didn't hesitate and answered naturally. I'm Chen Qitao. Chapter 512. Lu Cheng's first reaction when he heard the other party's name was Chen Qitao. What a king liar. His mind was already filled with jokes such as I'm Dragon King, Chen Qitao. I'm severely injured and have lost all my martial arts. I'm stranded in a foreign land and don't dare to contact anyone I know for fear of being discovered by my enemies. I hope you can lend me $5,000 for travel expenses to help me return to the Longhu Club. When I'm back, I'll take you in as my disciple and teach you the unique skills of the fire sect, or give you half of my assets. As for knowing his name, damn it. Which high-class liar wouldn't buy big data? Resisting the urge to blurt out, I'm returning Qiandonglu, Lu Cheng replied calmly, Senior, is there anything I can help you with? This voice sounded so *king familiar. It sounded like the Dragon King when he was being interviewed. Even the tone was similar. The tone on the other end of the phone remained unchanged. If you're not returning to the Wuxia Club next year, come to the Longhu Club. Not scammed? No one should know that I'm not returning to the Wuxia Club. Could it be the real Dragon King? Lu Cheng was excited. Without thinking, he gave an affirmative answer. Okay. The Dragon King personally invited me? The other end of the phone paused for a moment. The magnetic voice didn't mention what had just happened. Instead, it said calmly, the core of Emperor Yan force is weight, not combustion, and definitely not explosion. You have understood this point very well. However, you have yet to reach the external realm of heaven and earth. Blindly pursuing weight is not in line with the actual condition of your body. It won't be long before you reach a bottleneck. You can try to do more at the inhuman stage and mix in the charm of combustion. Okay. Lu Cheng listened with a dumbfounded face, replying from time to time. How did this turn into teaching over the phone? After a few minutes, the person who called himself Chen Qitao stopped and said slowly, That's all. As soon as he finished speaking, The beeping sound was heard. Lu Qing held the phone and stood there in a daze for a long time, unable to come back to his senses. It really is the Dragon King. Who would be so free as to teach me Emperor Yen Force? Haha, the Dragon King personally invited me. To personally invite me. As a qualified fan, Lu Qing was both excited and agitated. He couldn't wait to shout this through the loudspeaker. What's wrong, Qing? Who called? Zhao Chang asked in confusion because of his strange expression. It seemed to have come from some senior. Lu Qing was about to share with his roommates the fact that the Dragon King had personally invited him when he suddenly felt that it would be too showy and high profile. Hence he smiled reservedly and said, "Nothing much. I was just discussing the professional competition with a senior." "Oh, when the time comes you should directly enter the top professional competition and fight with the Wuxia club, right?" Qiu Zhigao asked curiously. "Not necessarily," Lu Qing replied with a smile. At the same time, he picked up his phone and sent a firecracker emoji to Yanzhika. "The Dragon King called me." Yanzhika had just woken up and replied, rubbing my sleepy eyes expression, "Is it really Dragon King? Am I still asleep?" Of course. Based on his understanding of Emperor Yen Force, I can guarantee it. Lu Qing said with a fist-glowing expression. "He's inviting you to the Longhu Club?" Yanzhika was so smart that she had already guessed it. "Yes." Hands on hips expression, Lu Qing replied. After sending this, he calmed down and replied. Scratching head expression. "I seem to have agreed directly. I haven't discussed with you and haven't asked my master. This should be the so-called evil disciple." "Haha, the excited Lu Qing is so cute," Yanzhika sent a rubbing head expression. "You know my opinion." "Of course I agreed." Lu Qing replied. Snickering expression. "Actually, I was quite afraid that I would encounter a difficult problem. If the Dragon King invited me on one hand, and our grandpa asked me to go to the Shushan study as a guest elder, what should I do?" "What would you do?" Rolling eyes expression. Yanzhika replied. "Of course I would follow my wife." Lu Qing replied without hesitation. Yanzhika replied. Covering mouth expression. "Actually, the Shushan study is a righteous sect. It's one thing to look up to you, but if they really want to invite you to be a guest elder, they won't be able to lower themselves to do so. It would seem that the sect has no successor. Anyway, there's still my brother, Senior Qing Song, and the rest." Yes. After sharing with his little fairy, Lu Qing barely calmed down his excitement. He chatted with Zhao Chang, Kai Zongming, and the rest for a while. When he went to the washroom, he called his master. "Hey, you're finally willing to call me?" Geezer sure said sarcastically. Lu Qing laughed dryly and went straight to the point. "Master, the Dragon King just called me and asked me to go to the Longhu Club next year." What do you think if I don't go back to the Wuxia Club?" He hid the fact that he had already agreed to it. "Go. Of course you have to go. Your fire sect martial arts only have force and no moves. Don't you feel that it's very restrictive? When you go to the Longhu Club, make up for it. If there's a chance, learn all the unique skills of physical invulnerability and the forbidden sect." Geezer sure said with saliva flying everywhere. Unique skills of physical invulnerability. Forbidden sect martial arts. Lu Qing's mouth twitched. "Master, do you have to be so straightforward? It sounds like you want to knock me out and send me there. My biological master." Geezer sure coughed and said, "I'm doing this for your own good, you brat. There aren't many chances for you to learn the Forbidden Sect's martial arts. It's settled then. With Dragon King's pride, he's already called you personally. What else do you want?" Okay. Lu Qing was secretly relieved. "Well, there might also be a shameless old guy who's good at pestering you in the next few days. He'll invite you under my name. You can just reject him directly. Don't talk nonsense with him." Geezer sure thought of another matter. 2 days ago, he accidentally let slip that his disciple would most likely not return to the Wuxia Club. "Who? Who's that?" Lu Qing was stunned. Geezer sure sighed. "I was young and immature. I made friends with that old guy by mistake. It's still a headache to this day. Anyway, don't give him a chance to take advantage of you." After that, he hung up the phone and walked around his daughter's house looking for good wine. Lu Qing was left in a daze at the bathroom door. Who could it be? Which force? These two doubts didn't last long. On the night of October 1st, the official start of the holiday, Lu Qing received a call from the old guy. The other party smiled very warmly. Lu. Yes, who is this? Lu Qing said politely. I'm a good friend of your master's for many years. My surname is Wu. I'm currently working in the Haiyuan Club. Zheng Wo has mentioned me to you, right? The voice on the other side didn't sound too old. There was a hint of leisure in the mellow voice. A little. Senior Wu Malian, right? Lu Qing roughly knew who it was when he heard the words Haiyuan Club and surname Wu. Which first pin mighty ones participating in professional competitions weren't famous? Yes, it's me, the empty nest old man, Wu Malian laughed. Lu, are you interested in joining our Haiyuan Club? Although we haven't entered the top circle yet, we'll be there soon. I can still fight for another 5 years. The witch has already grown up. The cheetah has almost agreed to join us. Li Xiaoyuan will come next year or the year after. If you're willing to join us, you'll definitely be a core member that will focus on nurturing. You can learn whatever you want from the club's martial arts. We'll give you a basic salary based on physical and vulnerability standards. If you want a house and a car, just say the word. Remembering his master's teachings, Lu Qing interrupted him. Senior Wu, I've already promised the Longhu Club. If I don't return to the Wuyue Club, I'll join them. The Longhu Club? That's fast. Wu Malian muttered. Lu, you have to consider this carefully. You're just one of the reserves in the Longhu Club. But at Haiyuan, you'll be the only one. To put it bluntly, they're big and have strict rules. Even if you're a heavenly son of the era, you'll still have to lower your head. Hee, what are their conditions? I don't know yet. Lu Qing answered honestly. He had completely forgotten about this when he made the promise. As for the fact that he hadn't signed the contract, he had to keep his word in the martial arts world. You don't know? Haha Lu, this means that they don't value you. What you need the most at your current stage is to be valued. Wu Malian perked up. Lu Qing replied immediately. The Dragon King called me. That's enough, right? The Dragon King? Wu Malian fell silent. Yes. Lu Qing confirmed. Phew, Senior Wu won't pester me anymore, right? Heh, the Dragon King's moves are indeed fast, accurate, and ruthless. Wu Malian sighed and smiled again. Lu, you really have to consider this carefully. The Dragon King is too arrogant and not easy to get along with. He rambled on for a full half an hour before Lu Qing finally got rid of him. He felt both physically and mentally exhausted. What a persevering old man. Luckily, my willpower is strong and I'm not swayed. On the 2nd of October, Lu Qing returned to Xioshan and participated in the moving. He carried a cabinet in one hand and walked into the freight elevator under the dumbfounded gazes of the onlookers. Seriously, it's not like we don't have money. Why can't we just hire a moving company? Why must we find a car and move by ourselves? Lu Qing cursed Qifeng in his heart as he moved the cabinet into his new home. At this moment, his phone rang. The screen lit up and the words hipster appeared. Ha hipster, what's up? Lu Qing answered the call happily. And Chaoyang laughed. I heard that you won't be returning to Wuyue Club next year? Probably. Lu Qing didn't try to hide it. I'm here on behalf of my master. Xinghai Club is waiting for you. And Chaoyang went straight to the point. Queen of Thought's invitation? Lu Qing felt smug for a few seconds and replied sincerely. I've already promised the Dragon King. Dragon King? And Chaoyang was shocked. After a while he laughed. Then I won't be long-winded about the conditions. How are you doing at Xinghai Club recently? Lu Qing changed the topic and asked casually. It's all right. Every few days someone will use you, Renli, and priest to educate me like other people's children. And Chaoyang replied casually. After chatting for a while, he hung up the phone. The phone screen showed the time and the person of the call. 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Husky. Chapter 513. Lu Qing put down his phone and thought of the calls he had received in the past few days. He felt a little emotional, and then realized something was missing. Yes, neither the Wuyue Club nor the Ice God sect had contacted him. Were they blocked by Master? Or had they acquiesced to this situation and development? Lu Qing shook his head and laughed. He didn't think about it anymore and continued his moving business. He followed the rented van back and forth several times, and became the main labor force today. He lifted the marble table with one hand that could only be lifted by 4 people. Lu Jixing and Qi Fong sighed that practicing martial arts was so good. Lu Yanwei, Lu Yuanchang, and the others who came to help didn't dare to help. They could only carry some small items and dutifully cheer him on and yell 666 a few times. When it was close to noon, Lu Qing entered his original home again to see if he had missed anything. The living room was mostly empty and full of junk. The cabinet, the TV, the single sofa, and the coffee table that had been used for many years were missing. At first glance, Lu Qing suddenly felt a sense of loss. He had a subtle feeling of leaving his hometown. In his opinion, the new home was full of unfamiliarity. Walking in it, there was no sense of familiarity. However, this was the place where he had lived for more than 10 years. It was a place that was engraved into his bones. It was the home in his heart. He sighed and walked around the living room, half checking and half reminiscing. He stopped at the door of the master bedroom and looked around. The wardrobe and desk were gone. Only the old clothes that his mother had finally abandoned were left on the floor. Looking at the empty space, he pictured the big mottled bed painted with red paint. Lu Cheng's expression was a little complicated. That was the bed that his mother had given to him when he married her. It had accompanied her throughout her marriage, witnessed his birth and growth, and witnessed his learning and hard work. When they got married, they didn't have enough resources. His mother was born in a rural family, and naturally didn't have a dowry. For this reason, his omnipotent grandfather found wood and built the bed and furniture by himself, which were still in use today. Gazing deeply at her, Lu Qing came to the door of his room. Because the new house had bought a double bed and a sofa bed, his old bed was still quietly in the same place, just like it had been for so many years. However, the desk beside it, the bookshelf opposite it, and the wardrobe were all gone. Thinking of his tumultuous childhood, of his myopic youth who would sneakily read novels with the lamp under his quilt at night, of his youthful holidays where he slept until noon, and of Yenjika lying there under the sun, of his pious and surging years of growth, Lu Qing had a moment of unwillingness to part with this place and his old friend. It was like saying goodbye to a childhood friend whom he had known for many years. I really want to bring it to my new home. Lu Qing took out his phone, took a picture of his memory, and sent it to Yenjika before she fell asleep. It seems like I don't have a home anymore. There was no past. Rub your head. When my family moved to this place, I also felt uncomfortable for a long time. Well, after 2 weeks, I got used to it and accepted it. Yenjika sent an emoji with tears of laughter. With Dad and Mom, I soon felt like home. Okay. Lu Qing casually picked up the few old books that he didn't want before, looked around the room one last time, and quietly closed the door, bidding farewell to the home that existed in his memories for more than 10 years. Taking the elevator to the new house, he took a shower to wash away the sweat and dirt, and changed out of the stained clothes. He reached out to wipe his hair, and white steam rose. Passing by the kitchen, Lu Qing heard his father chatting with his grandparents in the living room, and saw his mother busily preparing the dishes. According to the customs of Xiushan, on the first day of moving, one had to treat one's family and friends to a meal. Mom, why go through so much trouble? Can't you just book 2 tables outside? Lu Qing leaned against the kitchen door, and said disapprovingly. Qi Fong looked up and glared at him, not caring that he was the heavenly son of the age. What's the point of not having a warm stove at home? Mom, when it comes to customs, it's fine if it's convenient, but it doesn't matter if it's inconvenient. Everything should be done by yourself. Otherwise, it will become a feudal superstition. Lu Qing persuaded again. You're the one who's superstitious. Qi Fong's voice rose then softened. Today there are only relatives on both sides, not many people. Okay, Mom, I'll help you. Lu Qing walked into the kitchen, took an apron and put it on. You'll help? Go, go, go. Go out and chat with your grandparents. Don't make trouble here. Your grandma and the rest will come to help later. Qi Fong didn't look happy at all. She waved her hand disdainfully, as if she was shooing flies. My real mother. Lu Qing grabbed the knife and squeezed in front of the chopping board. Mom, I've cooked a few meals in America. Also, people who practice martial arts have good knife skills. Really? Qifeng put down the kitchen knife and watched in surprise as her son chopped melons, vegetables, bones and meat. Not bad. She praised in her heart, but that wasn't the main point. She didn't hide her curiosity and asked, "You guys really cooked in America? You were in charge?" Lu Qing thought for a while and said, "Usually I just cut the vegetables and Ku was in charge of cooking." Qifeng smiled and nodded with satisfaction. "You guys live a decent life. However, you have to take the initiative to cook some dishes. Don't let Ku do it. It's too smoky." She rambled on for a long time. "Okay, I'll watch carefully later." When Lu Qing answered, his hands didn't stop at all. The sound of the chopping continued. After a while, he finished preparing most of the dishes. Seeing that the countertop was full, he stopped and watched his mom cook. "I'm studying hard." He took a picture and sent it to Ku. "I miss your food." Yenjika, who had washed up and was lying in bed, suddenly felt hungry. After watching for more than 10 minutes, Lu Qing volunteered to cook the familiar stir-fried beef. He handed the phone to Qifeng and said, "Mom, help me take a video later. Just press here, and don't let go." "Yes, here. It will stop by itself when you let go." "Seriously, what's there to take?" Qifeng muttered and aimed the phone at her son. She couldn't understand young people nowadays. Taking videos while cooking. "Mom, you can press the button now." Lu Qing poured the beef into the oil and started to stir-fry. When it was time for the side dishes, he deliberately showed off. He held the pot with one hand and threw the food like a chef. Not only that, but he also controlled his strength precisely. Sometimes he threw the word one, sometimes he threw the word chuan, and sometimes it was raining flowers. After putting the fragrant dishes on the plate, Lu Qing took back the phone from his stunned mom and sent the video to Yenjika. Not long after, the girl said with a blank expression, "I've never seen such a boring person like you. What the hell is this fancy stir-frying?" Qifeng had already come to her senses. She pushed her son out of the kitchen angrily. Go and play by yourself. She doesn't know how to appreciate." Lu Qing spread his hands and shook his head in amusement. He walked to the living room. At this moment, he suddenly felt a sense of belonging to this place. When Lu Cheng's second uncle, second aunt, and grandma arrived and went into the kitchen to help, the warm stove wine was finally ready before 1 o'clock. As there were many people, they were divided into 2 tables. One was the dining room for those who liked to drink, and the other was the coffee table, sofa, and low chairs for those who were focused on eating. As the head of the household, Lu Jisheng raised his wine glass and said a few words. After that, everyone congratulated him on moving into the house. After eating and drinking, some people played mahjong, some played pig-trotting, some played fight the landlord, some played chess, and some played online games. They had a pleasant afternoon. After dinner, Lu Cheng's grandpa and grandpa were sent home by his uncle who didn't drink. His grandparents who came from Ningxue stayed in the guest room. Qi Yunfei and Chen Xiaoxiao stayed in the guest room. His aunt Qi Yan and uncle Chen Wenghua slept in the separate study. There was a sofa that could be folded into a bed. Lu Qing looked at the unfamiliar sofa in the living room and was speechless for a long time. First day in a new house and I'm going to be a director again. Covering face expression and sighing expression, he said to his wife. Yenjika, who was in class, replied with 3 words, laugh out loud. On October 3rd, Lu Qing practiced as usual. In his spare time, he went to Qin Rui's martial arts club. At night, he took the high-speed train back to Songqing because the martial arts club would resume the special training the next morning. At 8 o'clock the next day, in the martial arts arena of Songqing University, the special training team, which had swelled to more than 20 people, finally saw Coach Lu after a long time. Some people even took photos and posted them on Weibo and WeChat Moments. They were so moved that their eyes were brimming with tears. After finishing the preliminary training, Lu Qing put his hands behind his back and asked everyone to come out and practice one by one. After that he said, Senior Li Mao, Talker, Hezi and De Li, you can participate in the professional ranking event at the end of October. Jin Lu, Jin Yan, you can go too. You may not pass, but it's good to have some experience. As for the newcomer Deng Yang, he had gotten the professional 9th pin certificate before entering university. As for the 8th pin dance stage, he couldn't be rushed. Chapter 514. Hearing Lu Cheng's words, Li Mao and Kai Zhongming were delighted, as if they had been waiting for a long time. They were strong enough to get the certificate in April, but they were delayed by the national competition, and had to wait until now. As the defending champion, Songqing University was undoubtedly the seat of the division, and would enter the group directly. They would only appear on the stage of the new university martial arts competition at the end of November. On the other hand, Hezi and Wang Dali were both excited and apprehensive. At times, they felt that they had a high chance of getting the professional 9th pin certificate if they gave it a try. At other times, they felt that they were still lacking and that it would be safer to wait for another half a year. There was no need for them to be tortured. As for Jin Lu and Mu Jinyan, they had an indifferent attitude. To them, the chances of them breaking through the encirclement were slim. Senior Lu, Coach Lu, we haven't fought in a long time. I would like to apply for actual combat in the team to prepare for the ranking event. Wang Dali, who looked like someone released from a labor camp, raised his hand and suggested, "Sure." Lu Qing nodded with a smile without hesitation. With his current strength, he was more than enough to be their referee. "I'll sign up first. I want to challenge Hezi." Wang Dali stepped out first. His eyes were bright and his tone was resolute, as if he had been planning this for a long time. "Why?" Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. "Why does it feel like there's a grudge between them?" Wang Dali replied with grief and indignation. "The last few times we played werewolf, she would always be the first to kill me. I can't play this stupid game anymore." As soon as he finished, Hezi, whose hair had just reached her ears, laughed with the other female team members. Who asked someone to look so fierce? What a deep hatred. Lu Qing sighed with emotion. "Coach Lu, Senior Lu, we'll play this afternoon and then have a meal together. Do you want to join us?" Hezi asked expectantly. The freshmen who had just joined the special training team, regardless of gender, immediately focused their eyes on Lu Qing. The National Day holiday, special training in the morning, nothing in the afternoon. Feeling their expectant and inviting gazes, Lu Qing thought for a while and said, "I won't be joining the game. I have something to do in the afternoon." In the morning, he had to take on a part-time job as a coach, and especially spare some time to video chat with Ke, who was in her free state at night. He had almost no time to practice, so he had to make up for it in the afternoon. This would be his domestic work and rest routine for the next 1 or 2 years, and it would not be easily changed unless there was an emergency or too big of an accident. When everyone's expressions turned to disappointment and frustration, he added with a smile, "That's right. No problem. Once you've made the reservation, give me the time and place." Okay. Deng Yang and the others answered in unison, and became excited again. In the following actual combat training and daily cultivation, they were full of motivation and enthusiasm. When it was almost 11 o'clock, Lu Qing made sure that Yan Zheka had finished her homework and reports. He corrected each of them and asked them to practice in groups. Then he entered the locker room and shared all the changes in the martial arts club with Yan Zheka in a quiet environment. After the chat came to an end, he walked out and planned to go to the cafeteria to fill his stomach while the girl was washing her face. He would go back to the dorm and continue the video call. At this moment, a beautiful freshman wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges ran over from the female locker room. Her eyes were full of excitement, and her cheeks were red as she said, "Coach Lu, can I have your autograph?" "No, 2 autographs." "Okay." Lu Qing usually wouldn't refuse such a request. He smiled and said, "Call me senior brother Lu. Coach Lu has already gone offline. Look, it's already past 12. The girl was amused and relaxed a lot. She unfolded the white t-shirt in her left hand and handed the pen to him. She said crisply, "Senior brother Lu, please sign here first." Lu Qing didn't say anything. He picked up the pen and wrote his name on the front of the shirt. "Damn it, I haven't signed for a long time. I'm rusty now. Although I'm not rusty, it doesn't look good either." After putting away the t-shirt, the girl took out a talismanic necklace from her pocket. Its pendant was golden, like some mythical beast in legends. "Senior brother Lu, can I engrave my name on the pendant?" The first-year girl nervously took out the pen used for microengraving. What the hell? At this moment, Lu Cheng was dumbfounded. This was the first time he had seen such a request for an autograph. The student girl's lips trembled as she stammered. My cousin asked me to help her. She's very superstitious and her luck isn't very good. She's always unlucky. Senior brother Lu, don't you have the ability to reflect curses and bad luck? She wanted to ask for a protective amulet with your signature, so that she could avoid disasters and protect herself. There's such a thing? Lu Cheng was dumbfounded and momentarily speechless. Student, you can't be superstitious. Why does this sentence sound so familiar? Senior brother Lu, if you're not willing, then forget it. The girl stole a glance at her idol, and said in a stutter. Lu Cheng came back to his senses and shook his head with a smile. It's okay. Just this once. He took the micro-engraving pen, lowered his elbow and tightened his wrist. Channeling his strength, he engraved Lu Cheng on the golden pendant and passed it to the first-year student. Thank you, senior brother Lu. The girl thanked him happily and excitedly. On the way back, she turned around and bowed her head slightly. At this time, more than half of the special training members had gathered, and were planning to leave for the reserve cafe to play werewolf kill. Lunch would also be served there. Senior brother Lu, bye-bye. They waved goodbye cheerfully, leaving Lu Cheng alone. Sigh, it seems that in other people's eyes, I'm gradually not very sociable and don't like to participate in activities. Maybe they'll think that I'm getting more and more arrogant. Lu Cheng shook his head and smiled, half self-deprecating and half lamenting. I really don't have time. What are you laughing at? Little Ming's voice came from the back of the locker room. Lu Cheng turned his head and looked at Kai Zongming, who had already changed his clothes. I'm laughing at why you're not participating? Isn't that nonsense? Fang Yuan is leaving on the 7th. Kai Zongming replied with a look of disdain. I've told you 3 times and you can't even remember. Are you entering old age ahead of time? Really 3 times? Lu Cheng racked his brain but couldn't find the corresponding memory. For a moment, he was at a loss. Nope. Little Ming answered sincerely. Come here. I promise I won't beat you to death. Lu Cheng said, grinding his teeth. Kai Zongming laughed and asked, Cheng, what do you think is the probability of me getting a certificate in this ranking event? If you're lucky enough, you're basically guaranteed to get it. Lu Cheng answered honestly. That's good. Don't you know how much effort it took me to resist showing off my strength when I was with my former classmates, friends, and relatives during the summer vacation? I can't just jump out and flex my muscles, kick the pillar, or say that I'm an expert now, right? How embarrassing. Kai Zongming said with imagination running wild. When I get the certificate, I'll slap it in front of them, and they won't have to say anything anymore. What's the difference between the 2 methods? Lu Cheng asked, amused. Don't you think the latter method is more subtle? Kai Zongming made a retracting gesture. I don't think so. They're both equally stupid. Lu Cheng answered without hesitation. After joking and teasing each other, they left the martial arts arena. One went to the cafeteria, while the other went to the school cafeteria to meet up with Fang Yuan. The next few days went by as usual. Lu Cheng booked an early flight to America, so that he could make it back in time to supervise the ranking event. Smith hummed a soundless melody and walked into the office with light steps. During this time, he had been very relaxed. The tasks assigned to him were quite simple, so he didn't have to worry about them. What a wonderful life. Thank God. Amen. He had just made a cup of coffee and sat down when he suddenly received a call from the director, asking him to come over. What's the task this time? Smith knocked on his boss's door with curiosity and expectation. Monitor him. You should be very familiar with it. I don't need to say more, right? The director turned the computer screen around, and a familiar face came into Smith's sight. Yellow skin, black hair, chiseled features, a smile on his face, and the word danger in red beside it. It was Lu Cheng. Smith's eyes widened and his mouth opened little by little. He blurted out, "Why is he here again? Is there an end to this?" In the following days, Lu Cheng didn't make things difficult for Smith, who was on tenterhooks. He lived a peaceful life, kept a low profile, and didn't do anything out of line. In order to avoid the limelight, He planned to find a chance to challenge the Grandmaster of martial arts in the next semester. In the process, Cai Zongming and Li Mao successfully obtained the professional 9th pin certificate. He Zi, after a tough battle, barely managed to obtain the certificate. Wang Dali, who was slightly weaker and unlucky, failed in the group stage. Jin Lu and Mu Jinyan were too far apart. It was purely based on experience. However, the addition of 4 professional 9th pin fighters, Deng Yang brought his own certificate, made the martial arts club in the limelight at Songqing University again. More students were willing to join the martial arts class. As a last resort, the martial arts class added 1, 3, and 5 for students who didn't make it to the next round. At the end of November, the new National University Martial Arts Competitions Division Group stage started. Songqing University's first opponent was the weaker Celestial Academy. Lu Cheng, who came back from America for the 3rd time, didn't put himself in the lineup. He put the newcomer Deng Yang as a substitute. Even so, Li Mao, who was in charge of the field, didn't do much. Cai Zongming, who dominated the conversation time, and the new calf He Zi, almost completed 3 kills. On the first weekend of December, Songqing University welcomed its old rival, Shannon University Martial Arts Club. In the away team's locker room, Lin Xiaoji, who had a high ponytail, sighed and said, "Inhuman. How can we fight? Luckily, I said last year that we would wait for the year after next year. It should be next year. At that time, Peng Liyun will graduate and Lu Cheng will enter the professional competition in advance. This is our chance." Before the competition started, she was already thinking about the next time. Mu Yu, Old Man Mu, glanced at her from the blessed Buddha beads, exquisite crosses, and other items. He fixed his eyes on the new collarbone necklace on Lin Xiaoji's neck. "Your amulet is rare." He asked a question that had been bothering him for a while. Lin Xiaoji smiled proudly. "Yes, it's rare. There should be only one in the world. It's Lu Cheng's amulet that blocks bad luck." "What's that?" Mu Yu and Jin Dali were confused. "Lu Cheng's amulet? I asked someone to make a pendant of the sky-shaking roar. I asked my cousin who just entered Songqing University to get Lu Cheng to sign his name and bless it. It will definitely block bad luck." "What theory is that?" Mu Yu blurted out. "Metaphysics theory." Lin Xiaoji answered confidently. "I'm now a believer of Lu Cheng." Chapter 5:15. Considering Songqing University's current situation, there was no need to arrange a formation for the match against Shannon. As usual, Lu Cheng let Cai Zongming be the vanguard so that he could improve his verbal skills. In the middle, the newcomer Deng Yang would take the stage for more actual combat. However, unlike the previous match, Lu Cheng put himself in the starting lineup and stayed at the end without the slightest carelessness. After all, Bain Muyu's supernatural ability was comparable to a Dan stage fighter, and he was unpredictable and hard to defend against. If he lost here and advanced to the next round as the second in the group, it was very likely that he would have to face Shanbei in advance. Without Lin Ke, it would be difficult for him to win against Peng Liyun and Fang Zhirong on his own. Coming out of the locker room, Lu Cheng heard a tsunami of cheers before he had time to look around. Those were champion and good luck. The crowd's will was strong enough to shake a mountain. This was the atmosphere of the home ground. Even the most indifferent people would feel their blood boiling in such a situation. The members of Songqing University Martial Arts Club waved at the same time to both sides, which brought more enthusiastic cheers. After a few steps, Lu Cheng glanced around and saw an acquaintance. It was Xu Rui, a reporter from Songqing TV station. She was wearing her usual business attire. Her neat and refreshing short hair was long enough to reach her shoulders, which added to her feminine charm and highlighted her delicate oval face. "Huh. She's still a reporter? Huh. The logo on her microphone doesn't look like she's from Songqing TV station. Did she change jobs?" Lu Cheng nodded at Xu Rui as a form of greeting, despite the doubts in his mind. Xu Rui adhered to the requirements of the interview and didn't disturb them before the match. She only responded with a smile. After a short wait, the referee stepped into the arena. The broadcast announced the names of both sides. The first round, Cai Zongming versus Lin Xiaoji. It said that Lin Xiaoji has touched the threshold of Dan's stage. If you raise your proud tail, you'll be embarrassed. Lu Cheng said to Talker, half teasing and half reminding him. Damn it. You're so misleading. Luckily I'm a gentleman. Kai Zongming said sarcastically. Don't worry. I'm the best at talking to girls. F***ck dirty people see dirty things. Get out of here. Lu Cheng gave Little Ming a slap on his face and pushed him out of his seat. He didn't even need to do the fist bump to encourage him. Kai Zongming tidied up his clothes and hairstyle, then slowly walked up the stone steps and onto the arena. Then he was a little dumbfounded to see Lin Xiaoji standing next to the competition supervisor, taking out one item after another, At the end, she even carefully undid the clavicle hanging around her neck and handed it to the supervisor, repeatedly reminding him not to lose it. After doing all this, Lin Xiaoji tied her ponytail a little higher and walked lightly to the opposite side of the enemy. She pointed to her sleeve and smiled proudly. Kai Zongming took a closer look and realized that there was a circle of words embroidered on it. The words Taishang Laojun were written on the front, as expected of a Grandmaster of metaphysics. For a moment, Little Ming felt like he had been defeated. The referee glanced at both sides, raised his right hand, and announced the start of the conversation. Kai Zongming relaxed and revealed a sincere and brilliant smile. Last year, our two clubs were in the same group. As a substitute of amateur second pin, I had the honor to witness the fight between you and senior brother Sun Jian. It was a very calm and friendly opening, and it sounded more like he was trying to strike up a conversation with a girl. The referee listened quietly from the side. Lin Xiaoji nodded with a smile and said nothing. At this moment, Kai Zongming suddenly changed the topic. At that time, you were already a top 9th pin fighter. Now a year later I, an amateur second pin, have gotten a professional 9th pin certificate. I think I'm strong, but you're still at the same level. Don't you feel ashamed? Don't you think it's time to re-examine whether you're suitable for the path of martial arts? You're only a junior. You still have time to focus on your studies. Similar words poured out endlessly, accompanied by a mocking expression. Even the referee had some doubts in his heart. Don't hit people in the face. Don't expose people's shortcomings. Being humiliated like this, I definitely can't stand it. However, Lin Xiaoji raised the corner of her mouth and her expression didn't change. Even her eyes didn't show any sign of anger. I've met a strong opponent. Kai Zongming pulled himself together and changed 3 strategies in a row. But his opponent remained calm and responded with a faint smile. Her self-restraint was off the charts. Soon, the 3-minute conversation was about to end. Lin Xiaoji raised her hand with a smile, put her fingers into her ears and slowly pinched out 2 earplugs. What the hell? Kai Zongming's eyes bulged. He was dumbfounded on the spot. So I was playing the lute to a cow. You deserve earplugs consecrated by 9 eminent monks chanting scriptures. Lin Xiaoji snapped her fingers and flicked the earplugs out of the arena. They fell next to the referee. There were also words engraved on them. When put together they read, I'm not listening, I'm not listening. Isn't this against the rules? Kai Zongming immediately turned his head and asked the referee. It's not a weapon, nor is it sharp or hard. Theoretically, it's no different from plugging your ears with your fingers, the referee explained. There's a difference. There's a big difference. If I saw her plugging her ears with her fingers, I would have stopped talking. Do you know how much effort I've wasted? Kai Zongming was about to speak when he saw the referee raise his right hand, and was about to swing it down. He quickly gathered his thoughts and turned his attention back to the match. In the following battle, Lin Xiaoji, who was already better than Kai Zongming, displayed her tiger form, dragon form, snake form, and leopard form martial arts to the fullest. Her movements were smooth and controlled, making it difficult for Kai Zongming, who couldn't achieve his strategic goal in the conversation time. Even if he had hundreds of tricks up his sleeve, he couldn't turn the tables and find an opportunity. After struggling for 2 or 3 minutes, he was defeated by a round of tremor punch. Haha, I told you. Don't be arrogant. Don't think that no one can defeat you in the conversation time. Facing the depressed little Ming, Lu Cheng, as his best friend, showed him what a friendship between men was. Get lost. Kai Zongming replied in a bad mood. Then he fell into deep thought. Chung, what if all the opponents in the future don't know their manners and plug their ears with their fingers? What should I do? Practice a martial art of the lion's roar style, and become a human loudspeaker. The most basic way was to practice his inner strength, and not pin his hopes on the conversation time. That makes sense. Kai Zhongming nodded thoughtfully, and began to think about where he could get a similar martial art. At this time, Deng Yang, who had just entered the arena, had already started a fierce fight with Lin Xiaoji. The usually sunny young man had turned into a muscular barbarian with a jade-like complexion. Facing the enemy, he did not block, but only resisted and attacked. He had combined the quenching jade formula of the Shizhou sect and the 24 blizzard strikes into one. He was even fiercer than Lin Ke and Lu Cheng. He was like a human bulldozer. Lin Xiaoji, who was already in a tough battle, couldn't hold on any longer. She slowed down a bit and allowed Deng Yang to close in on her. She used her chest and shoulder to block a chopping punch and a tremor punch respectively. Bam bam bam. Deng Yang only protected his vital parts and attacked crazily. He successfully defeated Lin Xiaoji in the close-range combat, which he was best at. In the new round, he and Jean Dali played a game of cat and mouse. They chased each other around the arena and bumped into each other occasionally. After a full 5 or 6 minutes, both of them were exhausted. Inevitably, they entered the close-range combat phase, which was Deng Yang's strength. The result was no surprise. After winning 2 rounds in a row, he finally faced the enemy's leading general, Bain Muyu. Instead of being afraid, he was eager to have a try. Begin. With the referee's announcement, Deng Yang took a step forward cautiously and steadily. However, at this moment he felt a twitch in his weak calf. Before he could stabilize his foot, his ankle twisted to the side and deformed. As a top professional 9th pin fighter, he twisted his ankle on flat ground. Although his body was close to its limit, it was still incredible. With a twisted ankle, the bulldozer could no longer run and was completely passive. Soon he was defeated by Old Man Mu. His supernatural ability seems to have gotten stronger again, and his martial arts skills seem to have improved quite a bit. His punches and kicks are starting to show signs of retracting. Not bad. Lu Qing watched with interest. When Deng Yang returned, he slowly unzipped his pants, took off his jacket, and stood up. He didn't seem to mind giving the Bane a chance to catch his breath. At this moment, the martial arts arena exploded with voices. Everyone was shouting a name, calling the hero, the king of the arena, Lu Cheng. Chapter 5:16. Enjoying the cheers that were exclusive to him, Lu Cheng followed the path of glory to the arena unhurriedly. He stood in front of Mu Yu, who had aged prematurely. When the referee was about to raise his hand to announce the start of the 5th round, Lu Cheng suddenly smiled and looked at his opponent. Congratulations. You have hope of reaching the Dan stage. Mu Yu was stunned for a few seconds. He asked blankly, "You can tell?" Lu Cheng had fought no less than 10 challenge tournaments since he vaguely felt like he was withdrawing his supernatural ability. Perhaps it was because his supernatural ability was too eye-catching that it attracted most of the attention. No one had noticed it. "I've always had a good eye," Lu Cheng answered calmly. Seeing that Lu Cheng didn't mind giving Mu Yu more time to recover, the referee, who was weaker than him, didn't care and wasn't in a hurry to start the battle. An inhuman stage fighter had enough control to not cause any serious damage to a fighter who hadn't reached the Dan stage, or was only at professional 7th or 8th pin. Hearing this, Mu Yu sighed and said, "That's right. It's all thanks to you." "Why do you say that?" Lu Cheng asked with interest. Last year's comedy was a wake-up call for him? Mu Yu smiled bitterly and answered calmly, "Yes. In the past few years, my supernatural ability was too dazzling. Not only did it blind my enemies, but it also blinded myself. Although I didn't use it much so that it wouldn't backfire on my friends, I always regarded it as my biggest reliance and the most fundamental thing. I had strong confidence in it and spent most of my energy on how to improve it and weaken its backfire. It wasn't until I met you and was rebounded with misfortune that I finally understood what it meant to be powerless. Only then did I truly wake up and strengthen my own training. Fortunately, it wasn't too late, and I barely managed to gain some results. However, whether I could reach the dance stage is still up for debate. Hee, it's funny to say that my supernatural ability actually improved because of this, breaking through my previous stagnation. It was completely out of my expectations. Lu Qing nodded slightly. Before I reached the dance stage, my master said something similar. Muyu took a deep breath and turned his attention back to the match. He cupped his hands and said, "Although I have no hope of winning, I still want to learn from you. Please." Lu Qing lowered his waist and sat down. He stretched out his left palm and got into a starting position. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. A year had passed, and everyone was no longer the same. In the following battle, Muyu didn't use misfortune. Although his supernatural ability had become stronger thanks to the improvement of his own realm and strength, his opponent's improvement was even more ridiculous. There was a huge gap between a prodigy and a beginner martial artist. In the end, thanks to Lu Qing's cooperation, he used all his skills except for his supernatural ability. He displayed all the Xingyi skills he had learned to the extreme. He almost felt like he had been tempered into steel by his opponent's fists. After a moment of brilliance, he began to slide down. He took the initiative to stop and looked at Lu Qing, who wasn't affected by him at all. He respectfully bowed and said, "Thank you for your advice." "I wouldn't dare," Lu Qing replied with a smile. The audience was quite disappointed. They had taken out their phones early on, wanting to record a comedy. Unfortunately, Muyu knew his place and didn't let them do as they wished. Amid the applause, Lu Qing left the ring and saw Xu Rui standing in front of him. "Hi, long time no see." The reporter girl with only one dimple smiled and waved her hand. "Maybe it's because you jumped ship." Lu Qing made a joke. Xu Rui was calmer than she had been in the past 2 years. She smiled and said, "Actually, I have to thank you." "Oh, is today a collective thank you day? Muyu and now Xu Rui?" Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh and asked curiously, "Why? Didn't I do an exclusive interview and special program for you in the martial arts club? As you and Lin Ke become more and more famous, more and more people are looking for these resources. As for me, I'm not bad looking. Well, I'm not bad at all. I'm also good at martial arts. I've slowly accumulated some popularity and was spotted by the provincial TV station. I'm afraid I won't be a frontline reporter anymore in the future. If you're invited to any program, you have to do me a favor." Xu Rui didn't change her self-esteem. Good martial arts? Is it the ability to tell cold jokes with brother-in-law? Lu Qing secretly ridiculed and replied in a good mood, "As long as I'm free." Xu Rui nodded with satisfaction and turned to gossip. "I've been paying attention in the last 2 matches. Didn't your girlfriend come? Does this count as an official interview?" Lu Qing glanced at the cameraman beside Xu Rui. "Not really. We haven't filmed it yet." Xu Rui looked at Lu Qing with a smile and waited for his answer. "Ku went to study in America." Lu Qing answered concisely. "America? Is it going to be winter break soon?" Xu Rui rolled her eyes and pondered. She had considered studying abroad and had collected a lot of information. She had some understanding of this. "Yes, it'll be a week before Christmas. It'll be 4 weeks in total." Lu Qing didn't hide his joy. However, after Ku came back, she had to stay at her grandparents' house for a few days in Zhengke and Jiangnan's grandparents' house for a few days. She had to accompany her father-in-law and mother-in-law, and she had to keep in touch with her best friends. She didn't really have much time alone with him. After all, she had to participate in the prefectural competition here. She couldn't stay in Songcheng all the time. "Yeah, it's okay. I can go back to Xioshan on Monday and Songcheng on Friday. I can be a not-so-competent coach. They've already gotten used to Coach Lu's absence, just like how Smith is used to my presence." Just as he was thinking about this topic, Xu Rui suddenly exhaled and said with emotion, "If it weren't for you, I would feel that Songcheng University Martial Arts Club has become unfamiliar. Compared to last year at this time, half of the members have left, right? Coach Sure Lin Ke. Oh right, how's Lin Ke's injury? I don't see any news on the internet." He started recovery training in August and recovered in November. He should be at the level of a strong 6 now. Lu Qing answered honestly. This was all information he got from Ku. As teammates and relatives who had fought side by side, he had actually called to show concern for his brother-in-law. However, the whole process was very awkward. He was racking his brains to find a topic to talk about and only answered with yes, 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 and so on. The more Lu Qing talked, the less confident he became. He had no choice but to hang up in a hurry. In this regard, Yan Zhika's words soothed his wounds. My brother is already treating you as a friend by listening to you ramble on for a minute, and not directly saying goodbye. After hearing Lu Cheng's description, Xu Rui smiled and said, That's good. I'm happy that everyone is getting better. Reporter Xu, you don't feel right. You're a bit of a hipster. However, this has nothing to do with me. Lu Cheng pointed to his teammates. Let's do the official interview. They're all waiting. Okay. Xu Rui changed the topic to the new university martial arts competitions. This year, the strong and the weak are too obvious. The other contestants can only look up to you guys at the inhuman stage. However, it's not without suspense. For example, you guys will definitely meet Shanbei in the top 4 round robin of the division competition. Are you ready to fight with Peng Liyun before the national competition? It depends. Lu Qing didn't dare to say with certainty. Since the breakthrough of the ice mirror, his martial arts strength had taken a big leap forward. However, the improvement had been very slow. Even he, who had experienced the speed of a tortoise from a quasi-6 to an inhuman stage, almost couldn't adapt. Compared to now, he could be called a high-speed train. After more than 2 months, he had only become slightly stronger. According to the data, except for the freaks like the living Buddha and the warrior sage, most of the mighty ones with physical invulnerability were in a similar state when they were at the inhuman stage. Therefore, the earlier he reached the high pin, and the more time he had to reach the physical invulnerability stage, the higher his chances. Well, I feel like I haven't settled down enough. While Xu Rui was interviewing Lu Cheng, the Shannon University team returned to the locker room after a short post-match interview. Lin Xiaoji carefully entered the bathroom. She took off her clothes and all her protective items, leaving only the collarbone necklace on her neck. She turned the tap to release hot water. While waiting for the temperature to rise, she held the sky-shattering Ho pendant with Lu Cheng's name engraved on it in one hand, and put her hands together in front of her, chanting. After the ceremony, the temperature of the water was just right. She walked under the shower and felt her body instinctively relax. After a while of fear, Lin Xiaoji finished the shower without any mishap. Just as she was about to put on her clothes and go out, she suddenly heard the sound of footsteps and Jean Dali's shout from the opposite side. What's wrong? Lin Xiaoji raised her voice and asked. Nothing, I just did a split. Jean Dali replied with annoyance. Poor thing. Lin Xiaoji nodded her head sadly and covered her mouth to show sympathy. After a few seconds, she finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Believe in Lu Cheng, avoid bad luck. Whoever uses it knows. After that, Songqing University's journey was smooth sailing, and they advanced triumphantly. Under Yan Zhika's witness, they once again entered the top 4 round robin. Their first opponent was the Shanbei University Martial Arts Club. On Christmas afternoon, Lu Cheng, who was pretending to be a couple but actually a couple, suddenly felt his phone vibrate. He picked it up and saw that it was from Priest Peng Liyun. Lu Cheng whispered to Yan Zhika, then picked up the phone. Hey Priest, how come you're free to call me? Peng Liyun smiled. I just wanted to let you know that I probably won't be in the next match. We'll fight again in April next year. To settle down? Lu Cheng asked thoughtfully. Aren't you there too? Peng Liyun replied leisurely. After that, both of them laughed at the same time. They had a tacit understanding. Peng Liyun hadn't fought since the King of Youth Pro League. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, had only played 2 games of guiding chess since the end of the 2 unknown actual matches in America. After putting down the phone, he was about to tell Yan Zhika about what had just happened when he suddenly received a message from the military contact, Rapid March. There's progress on the wholeness formula. P.S. Looking for a recommendation on Monday. Chapter 517. Lu Cheng perked up when he heard that there was some progress on the wholeness formula. He immediately sensed that something was amiss and quickly typed. Is there anything missing? Otherwise, it wouldn't be progress, but already in his hands. Also, he must have something else to say to me at this juncture. Rapid March replied quickly. The wholeness formula doesn't belong to the extreme Hadu sect. It was coincidentally obtained by Muko Yamashita when he was buying an antique. After a few months of hard work, he finally relented and was willing to accept the proposal of exchanging the swordsman formula for the wholeness formula. However, there is a condition. He wishes to challenge you to a duel in a private setting with no spectators. Both parties will appoint a referee. He chooses the venue and you decide the time, but it's best if it's within a month. A few months of hard work. Lu Qing suddenly smelled a thrilling scent when he saw these words. Although it was an equivalent exchange in the end, Muko Yamashita must have gone through a lot of scheming and espionage to agree. It definitely wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. During the King of Youth Pro League, I was already able to defeat Muko Yamashita even before I reached the inhuman stage. Now that 4 months have passed and it's obvious that I've stabilized, he still dares to challenge me. I'm afraid he must have encountered something else and is more confident. After a few seconds of silence, Lu Qing replied quickly, "All right then. Let's do it on the 20th of January. To be honest, this interrupted his consolidation and accumulation of strength midway, and left him lacking in his state of mind. However, gathering the 9 words formula was more important than healing his master's old injury and Ku's health. He was willing to compromise for this. Besides, when I go to America in February to spend the new year with Ku, I'll start looking for opportunities to challenge Grandmasters of martial arts as a warm-up for the Nationals in April. It's fine if it's half a month earlier." Rapid March replied concisely. "Then I'll pass on your message to Muko Yamashita." Lu Qing put down his phone, condensed his voice, and shared the two matters with Yenjika. Muko Yamashita has some confidence now. The girl stirred the milk in her cup thoughtfully. But choosing a private setting and rejecting the spectators shows that he's not that confident. This matter would be arranged by the military. The referee would most likely be a physical invulnerability mighty one, so she was relatively assured. "I think so too." Lu Qing laughed and said, "If he doesn't improve, I won't be interested in fighting with him again." He did not mention that it had interrupted his meditation. Yes. You still have to be careful of the location he chooses. The home field advantage is no joke. I'll help you find out which environment is most suitable for the martial arts of the extreme Hadu sect. Yenjika analyzed excitedly. In the end, she pounded the table lightly and said, "How infuriating. I can't watch the fight live. Cheer for my Chung." "That's why I set the date after you start school," Lu Qing said with a smile. "We can't waste our time together." "You don't even blush when you say mushy things now." Yenjika deliberately widened her eyes and said, "Just like how a certain someone is becoming more and more natural when talking dirty." Lu Qing teased, preparing himself for a beating. "I didn't." Yenjika was both embarrassed and annoyed. She turned sideways and elbowed Lu Qing with the strength of a kitten. Since they were in a public place like the dessert shop, she stopped flirting and turned to look at Lu Qing. "Chung, I think the wholeness formula is a clue. With the military and resources over there, if there are any remaining 9 words formulas in China, they should have already been found. There have been too many periods of war in our history. It's normal for things to end up in Japan, Korea, Miluo, and other places with similar cultures." She could see that Lu Qing cared a lot about the 9 words formulas. Naturally, she wanted her husband to get what he wanted. "That's true. When I go to Japan this time, I'll communicate with the military. It'll be much better than me doing it alone." Lu Qing had long realized the limitations of a martial artist. Without a corresponding supernatural ability, professional matters should be left to the professionals. The young couple chatted happily on this topic until the evening when Gu Shuang called. They went to meet up and taste the pot dish recommended by this local tyrant. It came from Guangnan and had been localized and improved. It was quite suitable for the taste of Gaofan people, but there were not many who could do it well. Yes, Lu Qing and Yenjika came to Gaofan yesterday to spend Christmas Eve. In the small private room, Gu Shuang took off her black down jacket and fixed her wavy hair. She sat down and snickered at the couple. Should I say Merry Christmas Eve? It was Christmas Day. Yenjika's pretty face flushed red. She pretended not to care and snorted. Didn't you spend Christmas Eve with your boyfriend? No, I broke up with him yesterday. Gu Shuang answered with a smile, not a hint of sadness. She wore light makeup and seemed to have done some makeup. Her eyes were more delicate and charming than before. So soon? It's only been 2 months, right? Yenjika blurted out in surprise. I don't feel anything for him anymore. He's not enough for me to stay for long. Gu Shuang seemed to be talking about going to the supermarket to buy fruits. Lu Cheng was speechless. He couldn't understand her world. He's not manly. He likes to hang around me, but he's not romantic at all. He's not like your Cheng, who rushed to America to celebrate your birthday and give you a surprise. Sigh, comparisons are odious. Gu Shuang skillfully changed the topic to Yenjika. December 9th was the girl's birthday. Since she was going back to China for the holidays, and Lu Cheng had only left America at the end of November, they agreed to have a video call and express gift. However, Lu Cheng secretly booked a ticket. After the competition on December 7th, they set off again the next day. After more than 10 hours of bumpy flight, they landed in front of a confused Smith. Yenjika didn't notice because there was internet access in the cabin. On the day of her birthday, she was surprised to see that Lu Cheng's background was her own lawn. While feeling touched and happy, she mercilessly punished Lu Cheng for his prodigal behavior. She punished Lu Cheng until he was beaming with joy. She also showed off their affection in her circle of friends and on Twitter, which made Gu Shuang and Song Li both envious and amazed. It was said that Du Liu lamented other people's children many times because of this. What surprise! It's more like a shock. You don't listen to me at all and act on your own. Yenjika rolled her eyes at Lu Cheng happily. This was also what she said when she showed off their affection. Girls really don't mean what they say sometimes. Well, men are the same. Lu Cheng tried his best to remain silent while the two girls were chatting. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Gu Shuang clapped and laughed. The food is here. I'm starving. After that, she shouted to the outside. You can come in. With a creak, the door of the private room opened. A well-dressed and average-looking boy appeared. He looked at Gu Shuang with bloodshot eyes. Shuang, why did you break up? Why are you here? Gu Shuang frowned. She got up and tried to push the boy out of the private room. Didn't I tell you? I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything anymore. The boy stared at Gu Shuang and muttered to himself, but everything was fine the day before yesterday. Did I do something wrong? I seem to be watching a melodramatic scene play out in front of me. Lu Cheng laughed and shook his head. He turned to look at Ku, only to see her face full of disappointment. She almost covered her face and sighed. The couple really couldn't interfere in this kind of thing. They didn't know how to either. After arguing for a while, Gu Shuang saw that the boy was difficult to deal with. She put on a serious face and said, You go back first. We'll talk tomorrow. Seriously, you're disturbing my mood for dinner. Tomorrow. The boy was absent-minded. His eyes suddenly showed some evil. I didn't believe what others said about you. I always thought you were a very simple and kind girl. It turns out you're just playing around. You don't have feelings at all. After listening to him, Gu Shuang's face turned cold. She replied with disdain. Yes, I'm that kind of person. Bitch, you bitch. The boy suddenly took out a dagger from his pocket and stabbed it between Gu Shuang's chest and abdomen. The polished metal reflected a cold light under the lights. At this moment, the world seemed to slow down. Extreme fear emerged in Gu Shuang's heart. She couldn't dodge and could only watch the dagger get closer and closer. Her mind seemed to be able to imagine the severe pain that would follow, and the scream in her throat was ready to be released. Just as she was at her most desperate, a chopstick suddenly flew over and hit the side of the dagger, sending it flying and stabbing into the wall, shaking and trembling. When the boy's killing intent exploded, Lu Cheng sensed it. He picked up the chopstick and flicked it. Then he stepped on the ground and rushed out. He subdued the boy with one hand. Yenjika fell behind and held Gu Shuang. Call the police. Lu Cheng turned to look at his wife and her best friend and said calmly. Gu Shuang was trembling with fear. Hearing this, she calmed down a little. She hurriedly returned to her original position and chose to call the police. When they came out of the police station, Yinjuka stared at her and said, "Why are you still pleading for him?" Gu Shuang answered with trembling lips, I think I'm also in the wrong. You know it too." Yinjuka seemed to have turned into Gu Shuang's mother. Some people can afford to play with, while others can't. If you don't want to have a good relationship, don't provoke others. If Cheng wasn't here today, your parents would have burned incense for you. Kukukuai, I was wrong. I repent. Gu Shuang raised 3 fingers and begged her with fear. Stay with me tonight. I don't dare to be alone. My parents are not here. Okay. Yinjuka turned to Lu Qing helplessly. I suddenly regret saving her. Lu Qing sent a message to the girl and made a joke. Don't worry. I won't fight with you for Kuku. I'm not afraid as long as you're in the same room with me. Gu Shuang forced a smile at Lu Qing. Before that, let's eat first. They didn't even have time to enjoy the potted vegetables. You still no hunger? Yinjuka stared at her again. Gu Shuang couldn't help but shrink her body. After everything was done, they entered the Gu villa. Yinjuka and Lu Qing stayed in the guest room next to Gu Shuang's. Sigh, only Songli is normal among your best friends. Lu Qing hugged the girl and sighed. Shuang was hurt by a man and doesn't believe in relationships anymore. Yinjuka explained again. Don't date if you don't believe it. Lu Qing suggested. But she seems to be eager to be in a relationship, but because she has no confidence in the future, she always chooses to break up when the relationship is at its strongest. Yinjuka analyzed Gu Shuang's mentality. Lu Qing's mouth twitched. This is an illness that needs to be treated. Well, I'll kidnap her to see a psychiatrist these days. Yinjuka actually agreed with Lu Qing's nonsense. On the other hand, Gu Shuang was writing in her diary with lingering fear. I feel like I deserve it. I have to pay attention to my breakup strategy in the future. Well, I have to let the boy initiate the breakup. When the time comes, he'll become more and more stubborn, clingy, unreasonable every day. I don't believe any man can stand it. The next day, she told her best friend her thoughts. Yinjuka only asked one question, which made her speechless. What if there really is someone who can stand it until you can't pretend anymore? Then I'll accept it. After a long time, Gu Shuang answered blankly. This episode didn't affect Lu Qing. The round robin of the top 4 began as usual. Songqing University won 2 and lost 1. Once again, they qualified for the national competition as the second place. Yinjuka returned to America in mid-January to prepare for the upcoming new semester. Before they knew it, it was already the 19th of January. Chapter 518. Haidong Airport, Terminal T1. Carrying his backpack, Lu Qing saw the military representative for this trip to Japan at the designated spot. He didn't need to talk to the military representative because he knew him. He was a middle-aged man with deep eye sockets, dark fire in his eyes, and silver strands of hair. Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame. Hello, Senior, greeted Lu Qing with a smile. Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame nodded slightly in response, maintaining his usual cold demeanor. With his experience of participating in the King of Youth League and traveling to and from America, Lu Qing didn't need anyone to guide him through the checkpoint. He boarded a Japanese Airlines plane with Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame. Senior, the items inscribed with the wholeness formula have fallen into Dongying. Could it be the same for the confrontation formula, formation formula, and array formula? It might not be Japan. It could be Korea, Miluo, or even Lijiapa. Lu Qing recalled his conversation with Yinjuka and took the initiative to mention this to Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame. Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame nodded slightly. They have made similar speculations and even have some clues. We can't rule out the possibility that the item was sold to America. He's indeed a professional. Whatever Ku and I can think of, they've already thought of it. Lu Qing smiled. Then I'm relieved. At this moment, Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame looked ahead and threw out a sentence casually. Muko Yamashita's 7 Sins Hadu has a breakthrough in terms of killing intent. It's the killing intent that's getting stronger. Lu Qing tilted his head to look at his senior and tried to probe further. However, he realized that Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame had already closed his eyes indicating that he didn't want to communicate. After a while, the plane rolled out and took off. As there was internet access in the cabin, Lu Qing turned on his phone and told Yanjika the information that Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame had just mentioned. It was noon in China and evening in America. Yanjika replied quickly. Hands crossed, chin in hand, deep in thought expression, she said, "This is a little different from our previous guess." According to her and Lu Cheng's initial guess, for a martial arts sect that worshipped extreme ideologies and emotions, places with spiritual symbols could stimulate a martial artist's potential and allow them to perform moves that they wouldn't normally be able to complete. Therefore, Muko Yamashita was likely to choose the highest dojo of the extreme Hadu sect, or a shrine that symbolized a certain Japanese will. But from the looks of it, the opponent's home ground was unexpected. What kind of places do you think can increase the killing intent effectively? Lu Qing asked thoughtfully. Yanjika sent an emoji of rolling its eyes and said, "The source of hatred. Ancient battlefields left behind by massacres? Is it some remote shrine? I'm leaning towards the ancient battlefield. It's not hard to find in Japan." Lu Qing made his own guess. After discussing for a while, Yanjika gave him a pile of information about the extreme Hadu sect that involved killing intent. In the end, she changed the topic and talked about the ending of the previous incident. Because of Shuang's pleading and the ambiguity of the key testimony, the boy was determined to be provoking trouble, not attempted murder. "At least she still has some conscience." Covering face and sighing expression, said Lu Qing. In the previous incident, the boy was guilty of going to extremes, but Gu Shuang also had to bear a large part of the responsibility. If she continued to be like this, sooner or later, something would happen, even if her father spent money to hire bodyguards for her. Yeah, she talked to the boy. I'm not sure what they talked about, but he didn't seem to be as angry as before. Yanjika replied, "Sometimes I want to study psychology and pull Shuang, Sister Jingjing, and my brother back on the right track. Especially that brat. Every time I'm so angry that I want to cut ties with her, but I also feel that I shouldn't give up on her. Sai Chung, why do you think there are so many mentally ill people around me? Maybe it's to accumulate good karma." Lu Qing couldn't explain this phenomenon. After chatting for more than half an hour, Yanjika said good night and fell into a deep sleep. Lu Qing buried his head in the information and the videos he downloaded in advance. He didn't neglect the battle at all. During this process, the Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame opened his eyes and glanced sideways. He seemed to be talking to himself and sighing. "You guys are so good now. Decades ago, it wasn't easy to get the details of the enemy. This is relative. The enemy knows us better too." Lu Qing replied casually. The Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame didn't say anything and closed his eyes again. Not long after, the plane began to descend and landed in Kansai, Osaka. The Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame took Lu Qing to a remote place after a few transfers and experienced the subway and Shinkansen. At this time, Lu Qing was already dizzy. In the afterglow of the setting sun, he saw the surrounding desolation. He saw an abandoned Buddhist temple in front of him. Its horizontal inscribed board was long gone. There were only scattered stones and wood inside. It was silent and gloomy. Even when the sunset shone in, it showed a dark red color. Lu Qing closed his eyes and formed the ice mirror. Suddenly, he felt that the cold weather became even gloomier. The lake in his heart was filled with dark clouds, and the smell of blood was faintly discernible. Ancient battlefield. He opened his eyes. Based on his previous speculation, he had a preliminary confirmation. The Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame nodded and didn't say anything. He walked slowly to the Buddhist temple that had the characteristics of the Warring States period. Lu Qing followed behind and carefully observed the surrounding situation. He could vaguely see that the abandoned Buddhist temple was originally used to suppress this ancient battlefield. There should be no lack of strange occurrences in this place in the past. He nodded thoughtfully. As they got closer to the Buddhist temple, he gradually saw the broken walls and Muko Yamashita standing at the entrance of the hall. Compared to August, his body shape didn't change much. He was still as tall and muscular as before. His arms were long and his muscles were very exaggerated. However, his face had a hair-raising difference. His thick and rough eyebrows were cut in the middle. The turning point was cut with a knife and an axe, sharp and fierce. Beside Muko Yamashita stood a skinny and short old man. He was wearing the dojo uniform of the extreme Hada sect. He had a conical bamboo hat on his head, and used the shadow to cover half of his face. His eyes were dark red. When he saw the old man, Lu Cheng's body tensed up. He felt like a sparrow being stared at by a venomous snake, or a goat being guarded by a tiger. He felt that this was the entrance to hell, the source of the killing intent. Just a little bit of it was enough to make him stiffen. His ice mirror cracked and his calves and stomach twitched involuntarily. Is this the terrifying physical invulnerability expert of the extreme Hadu sect? While Lu Cheng was thinking, the divine enchanter of Sin Flame snorted. A dark red flame suddenly rose in the desolate area between him and the Buddhist temple. It spread with the wind and burned into the broken walls and ruins. Suddenly, the killing intent and the flame disappeared. Everything returned to the desolation of dusk. 2 minutes later, Lu Cheng and the divine enchanter of Sin Flame stepped into the Buddhist temple and stood opposite Muko Yamashita. Without any communication, the divine enchanter of Sin Flame took out a painting with the word swordsman engraved on it. It was full of charm and had been passed down for a long time. It was obvious that it was the work of a physical invulnerability expert. The old man with the bamboo hat also took out a copy of the word Jia. The word Jia was thick and looked like it was expanding. Just by looking at it from afar, Lu Cheng could confirm that it was the real Jia formula. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame turned his head to look at him. After getting an affirmative answer, he and the old man with the bamboo hat threw out their items at the same time. They caught what they got and completed the exchange. Immediately after, they took a step back and changed their identities to that of referees. Muko Yamashita put on his headphones and took a step forward. His body made explosive sounds. Instead of expanding his muscles, he restrained them a little. He looked at Lu Cheng with his deep and cold eyes. Following the voice of the translator, he laughed in a strange and difficult Chinese language. Ever since I was defeated by you when you were weak, I have suffered great humiliation and pain. Because of this, I couldn't sleep every night. I felt like there was a flame burning my heart and tormenting my soul. However, it was this kind of torture that allowed me to find the most fundamental strength of my heart and soul. I understood the deeper meaning of the 7 sins Hadouken and grasped the true essence of killing intent. I want to thank you and defeat you even more. As soon as Muko Yamashita finished his sentence, his eyes turned crimson red. A thick blood-colored fog rose from the surface of his body, awakening the undercurrent hidden in the surrounding desolation. Balls of ghostly green phosphorescence floated in the air. An exaggerated sense of bloodlust surged, almost creating a mirage-like effect. At this moment, Lu Cheng felt like he was in an ancient battlefield. He saw warriors being split into two, generals being beheaded and daimyos being pierced by spears. When they turned around, their faces were exactly the same as his own. The intense pain and fear of death instantly materialized and added to Lu Cheng's soul. It shook the ice mirror and set off waves. Muko Yamashita's mental pressure wasn't like the secret arts that only had a one-hit effect. It blended perfectly with the environment, continuous and influencing at all times. Using the geographical advantage and unknown arrangements, he actually had some physical invulnerability aura. Do you feel it? This is the beautiful killing intent, Muko Yamashita said with his eyes half closed. As soon as he finished his sentence, he suddenly opened his eyes wide and stared at Lu Cheng. He pulled off his headphones and threw them to the side along with the phone. He said in a deep voice, "I've said it before. I will defeat you with my own hands and wash away the humiliation." A ray of sunset light shone in, illuminating the temple hall behind him. It wasn't worshipping Buddha, but a blood-red Asura with 3 heads and 6 arms. P.S. Please recommend me that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.